Okay, no repeat of yesterday. Only 2 minutes late this time. I'm getting better. Alright, let's make a few final adjustments here. The music seems to be a little on the loud side. So let's take that down just a little bit. That sounds a bit better. What do you think? Music too loud? Let me know in the chat if it's too loud. Hello JP, good to see you here. Missed you yesterday. Okay, now this can go away. And we are about to get started. So let me take a look at this, make sure that I got everything ready here. I think I do. I'm gonna need a browser. So we'll need that. And that just as a basis. And we'll open new tabs as we need them. So we'll need a little bit of this, and we'll need a little bit of this, and this will give us something to start from. Excellent. So, hello, Shadowcat back, another live stream. We are hopefully finishing up this this Star Trek module. After we get this done, if we have time, maybe we'll try testing a couple of things. Hello, Tux. Good to see you in the chat as well. If we get this done, I may go in and try building a couple of starships. Maybe try putting them together. I have a few starships saved in Roll20 that we might be able to use as examples. I have some stat blocks that I can use. I have the sheets on Roll20 for the starships, but I'll be honest, I kind of hate them, mostly because I'm not used to using them. I do almost all of my games on spreadsheets. I don't have fancy character sheets. I learned a long time ago because I couldn't afford to buy character sheets, and I couldn't afford to go down to the library and print them out because they were charged like $1/4 a page. I learned to do all of my own character sheets. That's just the way I grew up doing it. And yes, JP, we might actually finish this today. Maybe. It's been a long road. And actually, I'm not as concerned about finishing it as I am concerned about if I do finish it, what do we do next week? Because, we've been doing this for 3 weeks now. Yeah, we did races one day. We did ships another day. We did ground equipment last week. This will be the 4th. We spent a month working on this module. And it's now that I'm invested in it, I don't want to stop. But I guess we can only do so much. Anyway. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to start off with expansion bays. Because there's a lot of unique equipment in Star Trek Online that I think will... Okay, Tuxedo says you can go to Office Depot and have a stack of character sheets printed. Number one, where I grew up, we didn't have an Office Depot. It didn't exist. And I was way out in the sticks, so me getting to town to do basically anything was nigh impossible. To give you an idea, I lived about 12 miles outside of the city limits. And the city limits isn't where the sidewalk started. You get to the city limits, and then you had another few miles before you actually got to the city proper. And when I say city, I mean the town that I grew up with, and I mean it's not like I live there anymore. I grew up in Alpena, Michigan. The city of Alpena, which had the regional medical center and, you know, the regional college and everything else. The city, in heavy air quotes, was 30,000 people. That's all the people. That's the working adults. That's the children. That's everyone inside of the city limits. It was not a big city. I was close to nothing. And JP says expansion bays, necessary for Thanksgiving. Do we have Thanksgiving in space? I guess we can. Why not? But yeah, that's why I grew up basically doing all of my own sheets. And now, to this day, I still do literally everything in Excel. Wait, JP, you say that as if you know where it is. And Tux says, I have distracted the Shadow Cat already. It wasn't exactly hard. It's not hard. You could literally dangle a feather in front of me and probably distract me. He'd be like, ooh, look, Fluffy. Alright, gear. Where is it? Crafting, upgrades, ships, careers, somewhere in here. Equipment. Wait, JP, how do you... Now I'm curious. How do you know where Alpena is? Did you also grow up in Michigan? Now I'm curious. Okay. We're going to be looking down here at consoles. Alright. So JP says he's been through Alpena. Used to live in Belleville. Huh. Interesting. I actually don't know where Belleville is, though. One of my great regrets is that, like, I have lived in Michigan, I've lived in Texas. Now, when I lived in Texas... God, do I miss Texas. But when I lived in Texas, I used to work on the road. The frightening thing is I used to actually drive for a living. I had my eyes inspected just a few months ago, and I have long since given up driving entirely because it's too dangerous for me to be on the road. But they took one look at my eyes, and I told them, you know, I used to drive for a living back in Texas, and they're just like, you drove? And you're still alive? I'm like, I think I am. Am I dead? But yeah, when I used to drive for a living, I used to know, like, entire vast regions of Texas. But when I lived in Michigan, which is, you know, where I grew up, I knew, like, nowhere. I had a general idea where all the biggest places were. Like, I knew where Mackinac was. I knew where Petoskey was. I knew Flint, Grand Rapids, places like that. I knew Gaylord because I used to go there with my grandparents because they had a greenhouse and we used to pick up plants in Gaylord, Michigan. But there's a lot of the state that I have no idea where anything was. And I kind of feel bad about that. I should have been more knowledgeable of my home state. And unfortunately, where I'm living now, I'm kind of equally as ignorant, but I also don't go anywhere, so it hardly matters. I'm lucky to leave the house these days. Which is not a huge problem right now, because it's cold outside. Nobody wants to go outside anyway. Alright. So, back to this for a moment. This is what we're working on today. So, we're going to be doing the expansion bays. I'm going to go ahead and... I'm going to unmerge that so that I can merge this across all of these. And then go ahead and blacken that out so it makes a nice little separation there. So the way we're going to do this, and no, JP, I never actually went to hell. I regret to say that I have never gone to hell and I did not come back. However, I do hear it snows there, so there you go. Next time somebody says you got a snowball's chance in hell, that basically means 3 months out of the year. Well, I mean, used to be. There's not as much snow anymore. Like, I have barely seen any snow this year. And I am not living, like, in the South anymore. I'm technically part of New England now. This is not a competition. It's not a competition for distracting me. I will turn this entire stream around and go home. Alright, so here's what we're gonna do. I sat down and I went through all of the consoles in Star Trek Online because not all of them really benefit Starjammer in any way. Like, a bad example, but I'm going to use it anyway. The cloaking modules. Starjammer doesn't have cloaking. We're not adding cloaking, so there's no point in putting it in here. It's not going to help us at all. I suppose if you want to be really technical, you could use a cloaking module to add to the DC for scanning. If we come back to the Starjammer... Okay, don't show that again. And we come down to... Where is it? I think it's in Starship Combat I want to go. So I think it's going to be Science Officer Actions. Engineers... Science Officer. Yeah, scanning. So... Something that science officers can do is you can scan a starship with sensors to learn more about it. The DC check for this is 5 plus 1.5 times the tier of the starship being scanned. And by the way, this is just to help kind of slow things down because everything gets rounded down. So when they say 1.5 times the tier list, that means that if it's a tier 1 starship, then it'll be 1.5. You round it down, that means your DC is 6. If it's a tier 2, however, 2 times 1.5 is 3, so your DC is 8. It's just their way of kind of slowing down the way the DCs go up. JP says if you take your mail to Hell, Michigan post office, they'll singe the edges. Is that true? Because that would be cool. I didn't know that. That's what I get for never going there. Anyway, so yeah. There's a DC for scanning, and as you scan, for every increment of 5, which you exceed the check, you learn more information. So, basic information. You get the living crew complement, the ship classification, size, speed, maneuverability. Next one up, you get their defenses. Next up is weapons. Next up, you get their load. So, basically, you can see what's in their cargo bays. And at the next tier up, it's just anything else. So technically, we could use a cloaking device to upgrade this DC. But, like, this is so niche. Generally speaking, when I've seen people play, they don't care about anything over tier 3 anyway. And that's if they bother to waste their time scanning at all. It's so much easier to just shoot down the opposing enemy ship, and then, you know, you can scan it afterwards at your leisure. Still, I mean, it's a possibility, and if there's demand for it, we can always add it into the game later. But I don't see it as being very important right now. So what do we have? Well, the first thing that we had to think about, and I had to kind of stop myself from going through and just filling all these out on my own. I had to pace myself on this one. Transporter room. Star Trek actually has transporters. Starjammer does not. So there's no rules for it at all. JP says I want cloaking to be like Wonder Woman's invisible jet. So it's just, you know, the bridge crew flying through space with seemingly nothing around them. You don't want that because now not only do they know where to shoot, but they literally have nowhere else to shoot but the bridge. I'm telling you, you don't want that. So for transporters, we're going to have to go ahead and just borrow the rules from Star Trek whole cloth. Which is to say that we're not going to get into specific ranges. Since every hex in Starjammer is supposed to be the equivalent of roughly 10 kilometers, the rules I think are going to be really simple. If you want to transport between two ships, you'll have to be in adjacent hexes at the maximum. Technically speaking, you could be within the same hex. So you'll need to be at least, one hex away to transport. That's a 10-kilometer transport, and I don't even know if that's possible in Star Trek. Well, no, actually, that would have to be possible, because the other rule is you would have to be in orbit of a planet. Orbital distance for a planet is usually outside the atmosphere. So that would be like 100 kilometers. So yeah, transporting between two hexes, it's fine. Hell, we could probably make it so you could transport 10 hexes. If you can transport down to a planet, you can probably transport 10 hexes out. Either way, we'll use Star Trek rules for that. It should make it very easy. So, adjacent hex, 10 hexes, whatever, we'll figure it out as we go. We're not going to waste any more time on transporters. Warhead, yield, chamber. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to Star Trek. We're going to look at tactical consoles. So, warhead, yield, chamber. Increases torpedo weapon damage. So what I think we're going to do here is if you wanted to dedicate an entire expansion bay to this warhead yield chamber, I think what we're going to go ahead and do is give you just a flat damage bonus to your tracking weapons, whatever they happen to be. Which will probably be torpedoes, but I'm not necessarily counting out all of the other tracking weapons if you really wanted them. These are mostly just in here because I want to make sure that we have the right flavored stuff in. Tuck says he Googled the question. I'm assuming transporter range, and the answer is 1 to 20. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Unless you're saying that Google has been assimilated by the Borg, which, I would believe that. Maybe Google is 1 of 20. But answer 1 is a little more than 22,000 miles. I have no idea what that is in kilometers. And all of my other measurements are in kilometers. But either way, it's a long way. So I think I'm pretty safe in saying 10 hexes or orbit. There we go. Either way, transporters are going to be super easy to work with. So that leaves the warhead yield chamber. Now, we need to have an appropriate bonus on this. Okay, we are not talking about the Kelvin timeline, okay? The people that wrote that were functionally, mentally retarded. Okay? They should have never been allowed near a Star Trek script. And I mean, I say that liking the J.J. Abrams Star Treks. I really do. But for as much as I love the movies, they did some really, really stupid shit. They really did. And that was, like, the biggest one. I mean, some of the things that they did well, they gave starships point defense. That was cool. It's like, how is it that Starfleet has been around for hundreds of years and hasn't figured out interceptors yet? In the Kelvin timeline, though, they got that on lock. But for every good thing they did something really, really dumb. Alright. Well, let's see. We need to have a bonus for tracking weapons here. So we're going to go starships. Tuck says the true answer is it depends on how the writer feels like it should be possible at the time. That's pretty much the general rule of Star Trek as a whole. And it's the one thing that frustrates people like me to no end. I want to lock down some rules, and I want to play by those rules. That means that sometimes the rules are inconvenient. And God help any writer when they're faced with even the slightest modicum of inconvenience. That's why every single writer's studio comes with a complimentary fainting couch. Alright, so when it comes to these weapons, they don't really have bonuses on them. What I think I might do... Actually, I think I might have a good idea for this. I think if we're going to add a warhead yield chamber, I think a really good rule might be to just give them an extra dice. Well, an extra die, anyway. So, like, if you had this, since these are all based on the light torpedo launchers here, we look at the light torpedo launcher, and it does 2d8. If you had a warhead yield chamber, it could do 3d8. So you're essentially getting the equivalent of a light plasma torpedo, but for one less cost in BP. Right? Which doesn't sound great here for a light weapon. Maybe not really a great option. You would just go with this light plasma torpedo launcher. But if we look down here, heavy... What would we... Heavy torpedo launcher, right here. So for the heavy torpedo launcher, this does 5d8. If we had the warhead yield chamber, it would do 6d8. Well, the next step up would be the heavy nuclear missile launcher. That does 10d8. However, it has a significantly higher cost in both power, taking 5 more, and 2 more build points. And then if we come to capital weapons, it gets even better because we were using the... What were we using? I think we were using the quantum missile launcher. We just knocked off the quantum part of it. So instead of doing 2d8, it would do 3d8 times 10. Which we don't have anything comparable. We have the nuclear mega missile. Well, it may not be the best system, but I think I like it still. I still think this is the best idea. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with +1 whatever. And after that, we need PCU and BP. So for the PCU, we're talking about a workshop, basically. So like the transporter room requires a lot of power, because it's got to turn matter into energy and then back again. A warhead yield chamber is just a workshop. It's going to have the tools you need to enhance your warheads. It doesn't need that much power. So I'm thinking, what does a regular workshop go for? Let's see, signal basic. Where are the expansion bays? I went past them somewhere. Here we go. So a science lab. 2 PCU and 1 BP? Yeah. What else we got? Synthesis bay is 2 and 1. Tech workshop is 3 and 1. Actually, why don't we just go ahead and borrow the stats from the tech workshop? We'll call it 3 PCU and 1 BP. Why not? 3, 1, make it easy. Alright, next. So the next thing that we got on here was a booster module. And what was that? Oh, wait, those are damage specific. I think booster module is what I wrote down to try and combine the directed distribution thing and the pre-fire. Did I? No, I didn't. Hold on. And JP says our first ship is going to be a runabout. I mean, you could. Runabout would be a small craft, though, isn't it? So a runabout would just be a tiny ship. Technically speaking, that means that for a tiny ship, a runabout would have to be a fighter at the largest. Because I don't think there is any runabout that you can captain, as it were. They're all considered small craft in Star Trek Online. So you're only talking like 2 people on there. That means if we get 4 players, we'd have to have 2 runabouts. And I mean, I'm not opposed to it. We could do that. Hold on a second. Had to check something. No, that's actually not how it works. So the way this is going to work is you're given build points based upon your level. So if everybody was starting off at level 1, what we would do is we would take everybody's level and we would average them together. Since you don't take just one player and you use their... You would average everyone's level together. So if everyone started off at level 1, then that means that your party average would be level 1. You would start off with 55 build points, which is not a lot. For 55 build points, we're talking about, you know, fighters and stuff like that. We could get maybe a little bit better, so for 55 points, an explorer vessel is technically within your reach. It would be a really bad explorer vessel. I'm not going to lie. It will be pretty bad. But an explorer vessel would cost you 12. And then you would need to have a power core. So depending on how much power you want to get, you're going to need, say... Well, the smallest one you can get for a medium is the Pulse Gray. So this will give you 100 power for another 10. Then you're sitting at 22. Alright, so you're sitting at 22 build points right now. Thrusters. The smallest thrusters you can get for a medium are M4s. These will cost you another 2. That puts you up to 24. No, 26. Because 12 and 12, 24. Yeah, so we're up to 26 now. Other systems. If we skip the armor, we're still at 26. For a computer, technically you can get a basic computer. It doesn't give you any benefits, but it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to have it to run the ship. So you got a basic computer, we're still at 26. Crew quarters, you're going to get common quarters. They cost you nothing. We're still at 26. Defensive countermeasures. Technically, you don't have to install them. So we're going to skip those. We're still at 26. Hyperspace engines. Since this is going to be warp core, we have different rules for that. Warp core. A warp 1 core is warp factor 1 times the ship tier. So that's going to be 1 times a medium ship is 3. So it'll cost you 3 BP. We're up to 29. Expansion bays. We're going to skip these for now. You'll have some, but they're not necessary. Security, we're going to skip it. Sensors, we're going to take the absolute cut rate ones. So cut rate are really bad, they're really short, they actually give you a penalty, but they only cost 1 BP. We're up to 30 now. 30 of 55. Shields, basic shields, only have 10 shield points, but they only cost 2 BP. We're sitting at 32. Now, for an Explorer class ship, which is what we're thinking about right here. You have a forward weapon, port, starboard, and turret. So you got 4 of those. If we want to do this really easy, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to take 4 of the same weapon. If we check on here, they all have to be light. So if we take light phasers, ooh, light phasers are actually really expensive. We don't have enough. We're sitting at 32 of 55. We have, let's see, 32 to 55 plus 3 is 35 plus 20 is 55. So we have 23 to play with. Not enough to get 2 phasers. So we're going to have to get different weapons. If we come down here, phasers are going to be high technology for you starting out, probably. We can get lasers, okay? We can get lasers. We can get 4 lasers for 8 BP. So that'll put you up to, let's see, 32 plus 8. That's 40 BP used. You have a fully operational Explorer, well, medium class ship. Which medium class is... What is... Well, no, I'm on the wrong sheet. Medium class is going to be a tier 2 ship. So, a tier 2 ship. What are the options in Star Trek Online for tier 2 ships? Tier 2 player ships. Tiers 1 through 4. No, we do not get respawns. Sorry. However, I like the USS Cardboard. That's funny. I like it. Alright, tier 1, tier 6, what are these? Oh wait, these are exceptions in unique classes. I don't want exceptions, I want to actually see the ships. Hello Blizz, good to see you in the chat. I don't want non-player... Customization. Come on, where's just like a list of all the ships? Can I just get a list of all the ships? Oh wait, it's at the top. I'm extra special today. Okay, here we go, here we go. Tier 2 starships. So we're talking about the Saber Escort... Wait, is that it? Alright, so a Saber... There's got to be more than that. Ah, wait, okay, destroyers and... Wait, no, that's tier 5 and 6. Wow! I swear you got more options! It's just been a long time since I did this. Alright, fine. I guess that's the option. If we're going for a medium-sized explorer ship, it would have to be a Saber. Which is not a bad-looking ship. I mean, the Saber is very popular. I never cared for it, but then again, I kind of hate small ships, but people love the Saber. I really thought there were more Tier 2 ships than this. In fact, I know there has to be more. I don't know what I'm missing here. Let's see. Escorts, raiders, frigates, battle cruisers, science vessels? Wait, hold on. Let's look at cruisers. Ah, okay. We just didn't go down far enough. So cruisers, we can have a saber or... they literally just call it the cruiser. That's not a cruiser. That's a Constitution class. That's literally the Enterprise A. Alright, so we can have a saber, we can have a Constitution, or what's your science option? Science vessels. The Nova. Who doesn't love the Nova? So all of these would be, you know, options if you wanted to get a medium-class ship. Everybody loves that. Now, alternately, you wouldn't have to do that. That's just, you know, the example that I go to. If you wanted to get, say, a Miranda, or an Oberth, or something like that. Because I believe the Miranda's down here. Yeah, I think they call it a light escort. No, wait. Light escort. Oh, wait. The light escort's literally the NX class. So this would technically be classified as a small ship. So it's going to be a smaller frame. It's not going to have as many hit points. It will be more maneuverable, though. And it would leave you more build points to add on better equipment. So you could literally have, you know, this NX class small ship. But at the same time, you could probably put phasers on it. Let's see. Tier 1 for science is the Oberth. Yeah. This weird looking thing. I'll be honest, I don't understand this ship. I don't know who designed this ship, but, like, drug test that person. And then for cruisers... For cruisers, you had the light cruiser. Yeah, that was the Miranda. I'll be honest, I got a soft spot for the Miranda. I love it. So, yeah, you could get one of the smaller ships, have more build points, put better gear on it. Either way. Now, I do have rules for actually buying new equipment, but when it comes to making the first ship, don't bother with that. As long as it fits within the build points and the power structure, that'll be the starting ship. Will it still be the USS Cardboard, though? Probably. I mean, I can't work miracles. But, you know, we'll take care of that later on. The Miranda was designed to be modular. Very good choice. I agree. Pretty much all of them are modular, though, really. And when you say modular, I mean they are literally built out of extra pieces. Like, almost every single ship in Star Trek was built out of scraps. The Miranda was built out of model pieces from the actual Constitution class. Specifically, I believe it was built out of pieces left over from the Enterprise A model. What was the other ship? There's another ship in Next Generation, and I can't think of it now. But it's made out of all the same pieces as the Enterprise D. They just took the secondary hull off. They basically glued the nacelles to the saucer section and said, there you go. I just can't remember what it's called now. I think that was actually Picard's first ship, the Stargazer, but I don't remember what the class was. The Stargazer was the class. Tux says, buy ship, don't let it get wet, it'll damage the hull. Fortunately, there's no rain in space, so don't gotta worry about that. Just don't land it on the planet. Alright, anyway, back to the consoles. I forget what this booster module is. I'm wondering if maybe this is from further down. Maybe I skipped most of the tactical consoles because they just did, really obscure things. And JP says, no atmospheric landings. Believe it or not, Starjammer actually has rules for atmospheric landings. And since we're applying the Starjammer rules, but kind of a Star Trek skin, that means that technically, you could land a lot of these ships on the planet. And I'm not sure how canon that is, but I think the original Enterprise actually did have landing gear. I'm not positive on that. Somebody can fact check me in the chat. But I think the original Enterprise technically had landing gear. I just don't think they ever really used it. Let's see. Consoles. Tactical consoles. Yeah, I think the booster was just... I don't think the booster is a tactical console. Let's take a look at engineering. Engineering and science is where most of them came from. Yeah, there's the booster modulator. Okay. So, booster modulator is going to give extra power to different things. So, for the booster module, this wants auxiliary power, and I'm not exactly sure what auxiliary power is. But we'll figure it out as we go. We're going to skip that one for now. We'll move on. So, weapon power, shield power, and engine power. These are all going to be pretty easy. So, the injector assembly is for engine power. And that's really simple because this is just going to be... this will be speed plus 1. And we're going to go with speed plus 1. I feel like I should be able to scale it somehow. Well, then again, no, maybe not. Maybe leaving it as a speed plus 1 is fine. Now, why you would want to get this instead of the new engines? I don't know. We'll have to think about that. Because we got to make sure that this is cheaper than just new engines. So most of your engines cost a minimum of 20 PCU and 3 build points. So what I'm thinking we'll do is we'll make the injector assembly 10 PCU and 2 build points. So now you can make your engine better, but for less than the cost of just buying new engines. As for the field emitter should actually be pretty easy. So we've got shields right here, and every shield comes in an increment of 10, for a while at least. Once it gets up here, I mean, they start jumping. Because we go 90, 100, then 120, 40, 60, then 200, 240, 280. Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, we're going to simply say... total SP... And we'll just go plus 10%. Oh, you're out of here, Blizz. Thanks for coming out. And if anybody is not subscribed to Blizzard Star's channel, go do that. She's got good stuff over there. Alright, so the field emitter, I'm also going to say 10 PCU because it is an energy an energy emitter. We'll also go ahead and make that 2 BP. So the plasma distribution manifold is additional power to weapons. Now, since we've already got the warhead yield chamber, which affects tracking weapons, I guess I should have specified that up here. So, tracking weapons. I can't spell. There we go. So, tracking weapons plus 1D. I think we'll do the same thing here. So, we will do direct fire weapons plus 1D. And there we go. So we can use this to make any of our direct fire weapons better. And I think that's okay. Even if we're not using energy weapons, the fact is, the other weapons we have are like coil guns, which use energy. So diverting more energy to a coil gun, I think that's really the only thing that holds back things like railguns and rail cannons. They will propel a slug as far and as fast as you can supply energy to it. At least until you supply the magnets with so much energy that they self-destruct. But then you're not worried about an energy problem, you're worried about material problems. You need stronger materials to make either your magnets or your structures out of. So that brings me up to the booster module. Sorry about that. Now, auxiliary power. What is auxiliary power going to do? I know. I have an idea. So a booster module, we'll treat it like a capacitor. So we will simply say, if you install a booster module, it will be PCU plus 10%. Which means it technically will not have a PCU cost. Instead, it's going to have a high BP cost. So let's take a look at our power cores. We had to go way up for this one. So the cheapest power core is the Micron Light. And that is 4. The smallest one for a small ship is 7. For a medium ship, it's 10. And what I'm looking at here is, what if we were to cut these in half? That means that for small, it would be 2. For light, it would be 3. For medium, it would be 5. For large, it would be roughly 7. For a huge, it would also similarly be 7. And for a gargantuan ship, it would be 15. It does kind of grow a little bit there. But what if we were to say the cost in BP will be equal to the ship's tier? That means that a gargantuan one, the booster would cost 7 BP. Which I think is fair, because if we... Actually, no. What if we doubled it? What if we go 2 times the ship's tier? So that means a booster for a tiny ship would cost you 2 BP. And that's right in line with where I want to be. For a gargantuan ship, that would be 14. Which is still like right in line with where I want to be. For the Nova Light... half or double the ship's tier would be 16, or not 16, 12. Huge is tier 6, so it'd be 12. So it wouldn't really be worth it here. However, for the large ship, the Arcus Light, which is only tier 5, that means it'd be 10. Could be worth it. I like this. I think this works. So the BP will be 2 times ship tier. I think that works. I like that. Okay, so we've got all of our booster modules done. Next is the RCS assembly. RCS is short for Reaction Control System, I do believe. This upgrades flight turn rate strength. This is super simple. This is just going to be +1 maneuverability. I misspelled that, didn't I? Nope, I didn't. Good for me. Now, as RCS systems tend to not be terribly energy intensive, since they usually just use spinning wheels, at least, you know, in current ships. I don't know what they would be in the future. I'm going to go ahead and say 5 PCU, 2 BP. Should be pretty easy. +1 maneuverability. So when we're talking about maneuverability, what we mean is up here. When we look at the ships, so they have a size and then they have maneuverability. Now, for the tiny ships, they have perfect maneuverability. It's not really a big deal. We start getting into these smaller ships. Shuttles have perfect, and this impacts the piloting bonus that you get. So when you're flying the ship and you have to make a pilot check, a few things happen here. First off, obviously you have a DC you have to beat for the maneuver you're trying to pull. Whether that is simply flying in a straight line, or you're trying to literally flip the ship over and turn around. Oh, PC Unicorn's in the chat. Hello! First time I've seen you here. And Unicorn says, RCS are actually the thrusters, SAD are the gyros. Okay, well, if I had played more Kerbal, I probably might have understood, or probably would have realized that. Either way, though, I'm glad to be corrected. Anyway, as I was saying, a +1 bonus is actually kind of big here. So when you're piloting is a skill. So you'll be putting points into it. Whoever has the most points in piloting will probably be your pilot. But the maneuverability of the ship will give you further bonuses. And Unicorn says they're locked out of their car. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you're not going to be stuck there very long. Hopefully it's not cold where you are. Because it's cold where I am right now. That'd be awful. I'd be taking shelter right now. Anyway, though. So when you go to pull off a piloting maneuver, you will roll a dice, you'll add your piloting skill to it, but then you'll also get a bonus from the maneuverability of your ship. So if you have a perfect maneuverability, you'll get a +2 bonus. Good is only a +1. Average is average, so there's nothing there. However, when you get to your bigger ships, poor, you're actually taking a penalty on it. And so having an increased RCS will give you this bonus. And the absolute worst is going to be the Dreadnought with a clumsy. This is a -2 in piloting. So putting in an RCS expansion would give you a +1. And that's pretty significant. You're now back up on par with, you know, a carrier. And Unicorn says they're at home. Good, stay inside then. The other thing that's going to change are these turns. So the way maneuvering works when it comes to Starship Combat is you have to move to turn, and that's what this is for. It tells you how many spaces you have to move before you can execute one 60-degree turn. So if you're flying, say, an interceptor or a shuttle, they have perfect maneuverability, which means that they can literally turn in place. That's pretty good. I mean, who doesn't want to be able to do that? For a fighter, however, they only have good maneuverability, so they can move, then turn 60 degrees, so one facing either left or right. Then they have to move one space, they can turn again. And they can move and turn, move and turn, move and turn. That's pretty easy to picture. Everybody understands that. Now let's come down here to that Dreadnought again. It's clumsy. It has a turn rate of 4. So it has to move, 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 and then it can turn one facing. That sounds pretty awful on its own. I mean, that's pretty bad. But to make it even worse, let's look at the thrusters. So if you had a colossal ship, excuse me. Wait, Dreadnought is... Okay, Dreadnought is colossal, yeah. If you had a colossal ship, these are your options. C4, C6, or C8 thrusters. That means that if you have just the C4 thrusters, you can only move 4 hexes in one turn. You get to go move, 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 move. You get to turn one facing left or right, and you're done. That is your entire move for this turn. Whereas a smaller ship could have the same speed as you, but if they have, average maneuverability, they get they can turn every 2 moves. They go move, move, turn, then move, move, turn again. This isn't even the best flying ship out there, and you're completely outmatched when it comes to maneuverability. So turning is really, really important. Which is where the RCS comes in. By installing the RCS, you could have these C4 thrusters on this colossal ship, but because it has the RCS module on it, your maneuverability has gone up. You can move 3 times, then turn, and then potentially move again. Is it going to save your life? No. But consider if you got an upgrade in your engines, C6. Now, with the RCS module and the C6 thrusters, you can move 3, turn 1, move another 3, and turn 1. Whereas without the RCS, with the C6, you'd get 1 turn in there, and you'd still go careening off 2 more spaces. RCS could be huge in your ship. Additionally, pointing out that these do give bonuses, that means that if you were to put an RCS module into your racer, your turn can't go lower than 0, but your piloting skill could go up. It's only another +1 bonus, but if you're looking for every bonus you can get, there you go. I think that a +1 bonus to maneuverability is great. Next, subsystem redundancies. So subsystem redundancies is your resistance rating versus the duration of subsystem offline. If you ask me, that sounds like a crit threshold. Every ship has a critical threshold, where if you do above that damage, for example, this interceptor, if you do more than 6 damage to it, it automatically crits. I think that subsystem redundancies is going to be increasing that crit threshold. So we're going to go critical threshold. And I'm going to say plus 10%. So plus 10%. That means that if you're flying a racer, you're not really getting anything out of it. Or an interceptor. But starting with, say... here we go. The Explorer vessel. The Explorer vessel has a critical threshold of 11. So 10% of that is going to be 1. That means that your critical threshold goes up by 1. Is it going to save your life? Maybe not. It's not going to hurt, though. And if we get up here to the Destroyer, well, that's a critical threshold of plus 3. Why not? Alright, Structural Integrity Field Generator. The SIF. So this is just a bonus to Starship hull repair. Hulls don't repair themselves in, I'll get to that in a second. Starship hulls in Starjammer do not repair themselves, but I think what we could do with this SIF generator is give the ship some temporary hit points. The only question is, how much are we going to give them in temporary hit points? Let's see. I don't know. I'll have to think about it for a minute. Let me just address this first. So JP says ships can rotate in place in space with thrusters. You don't have to move forward to turn. I understand the mechanic, but it feels like terrestrial movement having to go forward to turn. You're actually not wrong. The problem isn't understanding the mechanic. The problem is that there is a mechanic missing. And it's missing for a reason. The thing that's missing from Starjammer is momentum. They do not take into consideration momentum. Your ship is traveling in one direction. According to the laws of physics, your ship will continue to travel in that same direction forever until something stops it. Which means you can have your ship moving in one direction and be shooting in the other direction, because that's how momentum works. You haven't stopped yourself from traveling in that direction, you're still going that way. Starjammer doesn't have that. And until you get used to the game, you're going to have a lot of stuff to keep track of already. So adding in the entire mechanic of momentum and keeping track of that might be a little bit overwhelming. I like the idea. I mean, believe me, I'm actually all for integrating momentum into the game. Because adding momentum in opens up an entirely new field of starship combat mechanics. Suddenly, you don't really need to worry about which gun is on which facing of your ship. Because if you have a ship that has a forward-facing capital weapon, but only a forward-facing capital weapon, then you could technically have your ship going in this direction, turn the ship around to point your capital weapon backwards, and then start shooting your capital weapon at whoever is chasing you. But while I get this, and you get this, it might be a bit much for the average player to comprehend. You gotta keep in mind that most average players would have a hard enough time just picturing flight or combat in flight in general. Like if we were to not just divide the map into hexes, But if we were to go three-dimensional and say, not only are we going to have all of our ships on this grid, but we're going to layer the grid so that your ship can be operating on anywhere from grid layer 0 to grid layer 10. And now we can add in a z-axis. So I want to go from this hex, I want to be on layer 5, and during my move, I'm going to move at half speed to move down an equivalent number of layers to half of my speed. So if I can move 4 hexes, I will go half speed to go forward 2 hexes and down 2 layers. Now that's how you would effectively add a z-axis to your combat. But now, how do you get your players to picture that? And how do you expect your players to keep track of it? Because the more you add into your Starship combat, the harder it's going to be for your players to get started in it, and the more you're going to drive them away. And I mean, I say this both from the perspective of a GM and as a player. Because as a GM, I would love to institute this. But I mentioned Kerbal earlier. I actually do have Kerbal. I don't play Kerbal, though. Do you know why I don't play Kerbal? Because even though Kerbal is like the dumbed-down version of rocket science, it's still above me. Like, I do not understand enough of Kerbal to be able to put 2 ships in the same orbit. I can put a ship in orbit. I've done it several times, successfully. I can put, like, I built a replica of the Apollo, or the Saturn V rocket for the Apollo program, and I sent it up into space. It did great. We did some measurements. I brought the capsule down. We got to recover it. It was fantastic. But I've never gone to the moon in Kerbal because I don't know how to get my rocket off the ground and get it to actually intercept with the moon. And forget about like building a space station. I don't even know how to get them on the same plane in orbit. It's above me. And because of that, I don't play Kerbal. You run into the same problem here. We could add in the momentum mechanics. We could add in the z-axis with different layers of hex grids. But the more we add, the more people aren't going to want to play it. So that's why it got left out, and that's why ship combat is done the way it is. It's just simpler this way. And Unicorn says, don't feel bad, took me a solid month to figure out hand docking. Props to Scott Manley. I don't watch Scott Manley enough. I've seen a few of his videos. He's very smart. I just don't watch enough of him. I don't have enough time in the day to watch all the people I wish I could. So yeah, that's why we have the combat mechanics we have. That's why the RCS accelerator is going to be so very important if you want to do that kind of thing. Now, as for the subsystem redundancies, we already established the critical threshold plus 10%. That's great. As for PCU and BP stuff, since it is a low power system, I'm going to go ahead and say 3. But because it does affect the ship as a whole, I think we're going to go ahead and... I think we'll go ahead and just do a hard number on this one. I'll say this is going to be a plus or a 4 BP. And it just occurred to me, we forgot up here the plasma distribution manifold. That's easy. That's 10 and 2. Alright. So, structural integrity field. This is going to be temporary hit points. So this will be temporary hit points. And they need to be equal to something. I think we'll make the temporary hit points equal to the critical threshold. So, equals CT. And we're going to make this one very simple. This is going to be a 5 and 5. So that means that if you're flying this Explorer, you have 55 hit points, but if you install a structural integrity field generator, you'll have basically you'll have 66. But I mean, we'll have to figure out maybe a mechanic to get those back somehow. I don't know. It's either that or we introduce a damage threshold. Which I'm not opposed to. But I think that might be a little bit overpowered. Actually, maybe not overpowered. Maybe not overpowered. Hold on, let me think about this. I think I have a better idea. What if... What if we introduced a damage threshold equal to the starship's tier? That means that because of this structural integrity field generator, the Explorer class ship could have a damage threshold of 3. Which isn't much, but it means that they would basically be able to shrug off any glancing blows. I mean, what is 3 hit points when you already have 55? It's not that overpowered. I like this. I like it a lot. So, never mind. We're not going to do that. We're going to go with, damage threshold plus, or no. Well, no, I do have to do it like this. I have to say plus the ship tier. I know what I'm talking about. That means that if you have no damage threshold, it'll be equal to your ship tier. I like it. Okay, and then we got 5 and 5 on that one, so we're good there. Next up is the EPS power regulator. What does that do? Or wait, did I write that wrong? EPS flow regulator. So this increases the power transfer rate. Okay, so in Star Trek Online, you can transfer power between your 4 systems. Those being weapons, shields, engines, and auxiliary. Starjammer doesn't really have that. So I still think this is useful because we do have the ability to kinda divert power. I need to duplicate this page so that I can come back here. Because I think I want to look at actions in combat. Particularly engineering actions. So divert. So you can divert auxiliary power into one of your starship system, giving it a boost. This requires a successful engineering check, and the results depend on where you decide to send the extra power. If it goes to engines, your starship speed increases by 2 this round. If you send it to science, all science officers get a +2 bonus for their crew actions. If it goes to weapons, you treat every damage die that rolls a 1 as having rolled a 2 instead. And if you send it to shields, you restore an amount of shield points equal to 5% of your PCU rating. I really think that we should be boosting this. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what if we instead lower the DC for this? It's already a DC base of 10 plus the starship's tier. But if you go through and actually spend the time and resources to install this this regulator in here, what if we just affect that specific check? I like this. So what if we say divert DC, and then we will subtract 5. So now instead of it being 10 plus the tier of your ship, it'll just be 5 plus the tier of your ship. And then, if you have an engineer, you can send power all over the place. It seems a little bit underpowered compared to the other ones, but Hold It Together is not really reliant on any one system. Patch is not reliant on any system really. Overpower is. So I mean, maybe we could reduce it for that as well. So divert and overpower. It does say if you're successful, this functions as a divert action, but you can send extra power to any 3 systems listed in that action. So yeah, I think we'll do both divert and overpower. Alright, so divert, overpower. And since this is going to be power related, we're going to go with 5 for the PCU. As for BP, it is a pretty passive system. I'm going to go with the 3. There we go. Oh, I missed that one. Unicorn said, now the Jedi are dead. I don't know what I did to the Jedi. But, I mean, if they couldn't handle whatever I did, then, I mean, I guess they kind of deserved it. I didn't intend to do it, but it's where we are. Alright, so, next up is the emitter array. I don't think that's in here. I think that we're not getting into science consoles. Countermeasure system deals with expertise. Emitter array. This increases starship shield restoration. Okay? That's actually kind of done for us already. So if we come down here to shields, a little bit further, all of these shields have a regeneration factor. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to boost the regeneration. So, shield, regen is going to be +1 per minute. And I think that's pretty easy. It does mean it becomes a little bit less effective as you get up here because, I mean, superior shields replenish 64 per minute. A +1 on that doesn't really mean a whole lot, but when you have 600, are you really that concerned? I mean, maybe you are. I could also say instead maybe +1 per tier per minute. Because that means that if you were to put this on like a an explorer ship, which is tier 3, so that would boost your basic shields over here up to a +4 per minute. Whereas over here, this would be a +7, added onto your 64. Yeah, I mean, I can swing that. I think that's fine. As this is directly connected to outputting energy, this is going to be a +10. And it's going to be a +5 because it is a kind of major system. And so up here, we'll go, so +1 per tier per minute. Next, graviton generator. The graviton generator is Starship Control Expertise. I believe that I put this one in here specifically for tractor beams, if you wanted to use one. So tractor, here we go, tractor beams. So it reads, a weapon with this special property can generate a stable beam of gravitons, creating a tractor beam that can move other ships around. In addition to doing damage, it prevents the starship from moving normally. The gunner can push or pull a target ship at a rate of 2 hexes per round. Oh, and Unicorn says they got in their car. Good job. Glad to hear you got in your car. Okay, the gunner can push or pull the target ship at a rate of 2 hexes per round, resolved at the beginning of the helm phase, or hold the ship in place. The pilot of the targeted ship can attempt a piloting check of DC 15 plus the tier of the firing ship to break free. When the tractor beam weapon is locked onto Starship, it cannot be used as a regular weapon, and it is only effective against ships of the same size of the firing ship or smaller. So there's one of 2 ways we can take this. Number 1 is we can increase the DC, which I'm not inclined to do because a DC 15 is already pretty difficult. The other thing that we can do, however, is increase the size of the ship affected. Now, I believe the reason why they say it can only be used against a ship of the same size is because if you're a smaller ship trying to tractor a bigger one, you would end up pulling yourself to the ship. It's a problem of mass, not power necessarily. There's got to be some way that we can actually benefit this. Where's our tractor weapon, actually? Here we go, gravity gun, tractor beam. So it's already a heavy weapon because there is no equivalent down here. So it already does 66 damage and it has the tractor beam. And for capital weapons, they have the gravity cannon, which are already pretty effective weapons, and we already have other consoles that could oh, wait. I have an idea. What if... Oh, this is perfect. We're not going to bonus, or we're not going to boost anything. This is going to be a non-weapon tractor beam. Perfect. It doesn't do damage. It's just a tractor beam. Now you can just install a tractor beam on your ship without having to take up a weapon slot. That's great. I love this. Okay, the gravity gun takes 40 PCU and 30 BP. I'm going to have it. So, 20 PCU, 15 BP. Is that more expensive than pretty much every single other expansion module? Yes, but it's a tractor beam. So you can use this along with all of your other weapons. It's basically kind of like a free weapon that just doesn't do damage. Alright, next up, sensor probes. This gives a bonus in Starship Perception in Star Trek Online. For us, Tux asks, what's the DC to escape the pull of the tractor beam? It's going to be the same as it was before. Which, according to this, is a DC 15 plus 1.5 times the tier of the firing ship. No other bonuses on that. So it's just, so if we're saying a medium-sized, like the Saber ship that we were discussing earlier, or the Oberth. I think the Oberth was also a tier 2. We're talking about a +3. So 15 plus 3 would be a DC 18. And it's not technically grappling, but it's about as close as you're going to get. Now, it's probably also going to need an attack roll. This will probably fall under the gunnery tasks. So you'd have your gunner. If you have 2 gunners, you'd have 1 gunner on the tractor beam trying to grab it, and then your other gunner can then shoot it while it's grappled. Either way, I think this works well. I like it. Sensor probes. Sensor probes are going to be super easy. So we can take this one of 2 ways. We can either increase the power of our current sensors, or we can improve their range. And I like the idea of improving range better. So what we're going to do is we're going to go +1 range increment. Sensors. Well, no, I don't want to use that. There. So if you have short range sensors, they're now medium range. If you have medium range sensors, they're now long range. If you have long range sensors, you can now see up to 40 hexes away. Which is crazy. I mean, 40 hexes, that's 40 kilometers out. Or no, wait. 400 kilometers out. Either way, it's big. I think that's like bigger than most of my maps are. Alright, so sensor probes are going to be rather energy intensive, so we're just going to go with a... No, because they are a subsystem. We'll go with 5 and 3. That should be fine. Alright, field generator. Tech says we're gonna need a bigger table. We're gonna need bigger monitors. Alright, stealth module we're not using. Field generator. Field generators increase shield capacity. Okay. This is actually also going to be super, super easy. We're gonna come back here. And we are going to say that total SP. Total... Wait, did we already do that? We did with the field emitter. Okay, hold on a second. Hold on. Alright, so if we've already got that in the field emitter. Let's go back and look at that. So the field emitter was an engineering console. And JP says definitely going to be using the double display. I've got 3 monitors. And sometimes it still doesn't feel like enough. Alright, field emitters increase shield power setting. So, what do we want to do with that then? Since the field emitter actually does have to be... This fits much better down here. So total SP is plus 10%. That means we got to change this up here. So let's take a look at Starship Combat again. So according to Starship Combat, under Science Officers, we have the ability to balance. When you balance shields, you can redirect power from one quadrant to another. With a successful check, you can shift shield points in the shield one quadrant, from the shield in one quadrant to another shield in another quadrant, including to depleted shields. After rebalancing, every shield must have at least 10% of the total current SP. Or alternately, you can add up all the points from the remaining shields and evenly distribute them to all four quadrants, putting any excess in the forward quadrant. I don't really see a way to boost that, because all you're doing is moving the numbers around. And if I were to give that ability to like heal the shields at the same time, then we're treading on engineer territory. So we can't really do that. So what else can we do with this? We've already boosted the regeneration. We've already boosted the total shield points. I'm not sure. I may have to leave this one blank for now, because that's exactly what I'm drawing as a blank. We're going to leave that one blank for now. I am, however, going to transfer all of that down here. So 10 and 2. And then we'll just go ahead and delete that. Alright, nanite reinforced circuitry. So, nanite reinforced circuitry increases hull regeneration rate. We covered this also under the engineering, the engineering stuff. Because subsystem redundancies, we got the critical threshold. And with the structural integrity field generator, we've got a damage threshold. Nanite reinforced circuitry. I'm not necessarily sure that I have a use for it. At least nothing that hasn't already been covered. Alright. What's the next one? Shield emitter amplifier also affects shield regeneration rate. You know, now that I look at these, there's like nothing in these that hasn't been better covered somewhere else. I'm thinking maybe we just don't need them. I'm really thinking we just do not need these. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this back up here. I think that I'm just going to go ahead and delete these. We don't need them. And so that should do it. This should be all of the expansion modules that we need from Star Trek Online. I mean, unless somebody else has got another thought. I'm open for suggestions. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. So we've got all of these expansion bays, plus all the normal expansion bays that are already in Starjammer. I mean, when we think about the about Star Trek, and we think about all the different parts on the starship, I mean, we got engineering. We have tactical, which is going to be on the bridge, of course. What else we need? JPS, how do we want to handle character generation? Generation is actually going to be done pretty standard. So what will happen is... Oh, and I actually missed one. Hold on. Before that, Tuck said a GM's work is never done. We'll find something you didn't think of, I promise. Now, see, actually, that's the kind of thing I specialize in. I'm usually pretty good at thinking things up on the fly. That's why I make all of my generators and stuff. How do we want to handle character generation? So, the way that works is pretty simple. There are Starjammer... There are Starjammer character sheets. Like, let me go ahead and duplicate this. And we're going to go here. Maybe. What? How dare? Wait, what is this? Oh, I went to the wrong place. That's why. Wait. Don't look. Nobody gets to see this. It's super private. It's also probably on my YouTube channel. I have no idea anymore. If it's not on my YouTube channel, it's probably on my Patreon. I don't know. It's everywhere. But that doesn't mean I have to go throwing my email address everywhere. Okay. So when we come over here, we're going to add a character sheet. And unfortunately, this doesn't really show up very well, just because of the way I have my screen, done. Yeah, I'll have to bring this down a little bit. There we go. Okay. So, here is the character sheet that gets used for Starjammer. They call it Starfinder, Starjammer, it's all the same thing. I have my own version on a massive spreadsheet. I've already shown you my version of it. But we click on the little hammer and wrench here. This opens it up. And this is, by and large, what you will be filling out. Now, the fun thing about this is if you're any good with it, and I'm not, there's all kinds of macros and stuff you can plug in that you can use to just automatically roll dice. You can literally just come over here, click on a skill, and have it roll the dice for you. See? Like that. Some of them are already built in. Now, do they always work right? No, they usually don't, but they're available. So this is the character sheet, and this is what we will basically fill out together. You'll be filling this out on the Roll20 side. I'll be filling out my spreadsheet on my side, so that I can keep everyone's characters together for a quick reference. The way that it will be done, though, is I will sit down individually with every single one of my players. And the reason I do this is because I do have a background in writing. I'm actually very good at it. And one of the things that I specialize in is plot holes. Specifically, I'm really good at making connections, explaining these connections to different things, and identifying when two things just have absolutely nothing to do with each other, or when they're missing something. So when we go through your character and we figure out what is your backstory, what is your motivation, and how did you get here, we'll be able to establish everything that we need so that your character has a solid backstory, a good foundation, somewhere to build from. Every character needs these things, otherwise, when I ask you why do you want to do something, you're not going to know. If I ask you why are you taking this action, and you can't tell me why, one of two things is happening. Number one, either you're taking an action that you haven't thought about, and I'm going to implore you to think about what you're doing before you do it, or we haven't gone far enough back into your character's foundation to establish a reason for it. Now, one of those I can fix, the other one I cannot. And Tuck says, a writer that specializes in plot holes running a Star Trek campaign. It's perfect. I guess we'll see. Here's the thing, though. I'm not going back to fix their work. Okay? I'm not going to try and fix what they've done. They know what they did. They will be held responsible. Anyway, so I will sit down and work individually with my players to make sure that their characters are perfect. Which isn't exactly as hard as you think it is. They don't need to be perfect people. They just need to be perfect characters. JP says in Alan Rickman's voice, what is your motivation? I don't actually know who Alan Rickman is, or what we're referencing here. I'll have to educate myself on whatever memes people are up with nowadays. Actually, Alan Rickman's pretty old now, isn't he? I don't know. Regardless, though, I will work with my players to get perfect characters done, so there shouldn't be any problems inside of the story itself. And not only that, but once we do that, again, I go back to the campaign I ran called the Nexus of Tangled Threads. After I had sat down with all of my players and gotten their characters worked out, I was able to take all of their motivations and all of their future goals and either lay them over each other or combine them. And JP says that it's from Galaxy Quest and Alan Rickman is dead. Well, now I'm sad. I don't even know who that is, but I'm still sad. I never saw Galaxy Quest, though. I heard it was good. I'll have to watch it someday. I don't get a lot of time to watch movies, though. But yeah, once I have all the characters established, I'll be able to weave a very nice, cohesive story that everyone will have something to take away from. Because not only does your character need to have a good foundation, and they need to have a motivation, they have a goal. And it's a goal that, number one, you, as the player, need to be working towards. And number two, it's what I, as a DM, need to be providing for you. This street actually does go two ways. It's not I just make the game and you play whatever I give you to play. And JP says Alan Rickman was Professor Snape. I knew that name from somewhere. He also says the Nexus of Tangled Threads, that's as good as the Guild of Calamitous Intent. Look, I cannot ever claim to write something as good as the Guild of Calamitous Intent. I can't do it. I'm not that good. I'm not that special. The Venture Brothers can never be topped. But I will do my best, and if I do my best, everybody should be able to take something away from this game. Whatever that happens to be. Which, by the way, since we're here, I got a map in here. It's, big. And a little bit hard to read. But here's the map. And not only do we have the map, but I have gone through, get this dice out of here, and scaled it so we can actually measure the distances. So, for example, from the Sol system to the Vulcan system, which is something we kind of have measurements for already, it's supposed to be 14 light years. This comes out to 14.6. Which is close enough for me. I mean, space is always moving, so, you know, distances will change over time. Also, apparently, Disney acquired Star Wars or Star Trek because you can get from Earth to Andor. And it'd only take you 24 light years to get there. Okay, JP says, I for one am excited about this. Can't wait for our first temporal rift or unstable wormhole. I am not doing temporal stories. I'm not doing it. Because unlike the writers of Star Trek, I'm smart. I know, before even getting started, not to open that can of worms. Okay? Not doing it. The minute you introduce time travel, everything goes to crap. Unstable wormholes, maybe we can do that. But yeah, we got a map. And it can be used to actually measure distances. So when we come back to... Let me move this up. When we come back to the spreadsheet... And we say that if we have a Warp 2 core installed in our ship, it moves at 10 light years. Well, essentially, I guess it's like, it's, the speed of light times 10. So, yeah, I guess technically it would be 10C, so it would take 10 years to go... Or no, wait, how am I doing that? Why am I making this more complicated? It's a factor of 10, so it goes 10 light years in 1 year. God, stupid math. Stupid me. It goes 10 light years in 1 year. So when we come back to this, that means that to go from Earth to Vulcan would take a little more than 1 year. I don't recommend it. But let's not forget that the Enterprise, the NX-01 Enterprise, was a Warp 4 ship or Warp 5 ship. Was it the first Warp 5 ship humanity had built? Hold on. I should know this one, but I don't. Let's see. The NX-01... Ah, okay, it was the first successful Warp 5 ship. So that means that that ship had a Warp 5, so it went 214 times the speed of light. If I were to take my calculator out and go 214 divided by... Hold on. 214 divided by 14 light years. Wait, no, I did that wrong. Other way around. 14 light years divided by 214. So that would take 0.065 years. Now, since I can't convert that to a number, 365 days times 0.065 comes out to 23.725 days. So basically, with a Warp 5 engine, it would take a little bit less than a month. Like 3 weeks, a little more than 3 weeks to get from Earth to Vulcan. Now, it's kind of hard to say whether or not that's accurate because Star Trek is a weekly show, and they skip all the time in the middle, but that sounds pretty accurate to me. I mean, I do believe that the Enterprise D had a cruising speed of like warp 6, which would be 392 times, which means that the Enterprise D at cruising speed could be there in like a week. Either way, this works well. This will allow us to not only be able to judge distances, but also time. Time is going to be important because, you know, if I give you a choice, you can either go here for this event or go here for this event, and there's going to be consequences depending on which one you go to. You can look at the map and say, well, in the amount of time we have before the consequences set in, we can go to these places. It's important. It's especially important to me because I think that by putting down these hard rules, you actually inspire creativity from your players. So yeah, I'm actually kind of a big fan of the whole Sophie's Choice model. You can expect it. All right, as far as the module goes, though, I think we're pretty much done with it. The only thing that we don't have yet are a few of the extra races that people wanted. And we've already been here 2 hours, but we can give it a little bit more time. One thing that people wanted is I had one player who was interested in a Tholian race. So we should probably look at that. Now, Tholians are going to be a little bit hard. So let's just put Tholian here. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't know that there is anything in here that's going to be really similar. So here we go, Tholians. So the first thing right off the bat, Tholians are a crystalline-based species. Do I even have stats for a crystalline-based species in here? Because it ain't humans, it ain't Kasathas, Lystrantas, or any of these. Tentacle monster race when? Hold on. After we get done with the Tholians, we're going to go do Nidarians. Then you can have your tentacles then. JP, I don't have an answer for that yet, because I don't know what everyone is going to be doing. It's still kind of up in the air. We know it's going to be set in the Star Trek universe. Okay, we've already established that we all want to do that. As for what we're going to do there, that hasn't been decided. It could be a Federation Starfleet crew. We could also do, like, independent pirates or something. The fact is that all of this stuff is not Federation specific. If we wanted to do a Klingon raiding party, these rules will work equally good for that. If we wanted to do an Orion slaver thing, we can do that too. For that matter, if we wanted to play as a Borg sphere, trying to assimilate the galaxy, our rules will also work equally good for that. It's completely open. This is why I didn't sit down to write a story. I wanted to write a module of rules. Rules are tools. And with the right rules, we can do anything we want. So, now that we're getting back on this, we're going to go to races by other publishers. Rogue Genius, I think, had some good stuff in it, didn't it? Maybe, kinda. Some of these are familiar. Well, you know, I was discussing this because the person who is interested in playing a Tholian is actually Blizz. So Blizz wants in on this too. And Blizz was interested in the Tholian because Blizz likes weird characters. And when we were discussing it, she wasn't quite sure if that was going to work, because it's a Tholian. The first problem, she's like, well, Tholians are evil, and I'm like, well, as a whole, yeah. But if you're going to be playing a heroic character, then obviously your character is different from the normal. I mean, if you want to talk like fantasy, most people never grow up to be knights or clerics. Most people don't go out and slay dragons or vampires. You're not normal. Just by venture of being the main character, you are not normal. Which means that anything that would be considered normal no longer applies to you, and that includes alignment. You can have evil elves. You can have good tieflings. You can have smart orcs. You can have stupid gnomes. Your character is whatever you want to make it, and it's fine because your character is not a normal character of your particular race. Which means, do we want to have a Tholian character? Well, let's think about this. Number one, in order for us to have a Tholian character, what would have to happen? Tux says, let's run a D&D campaign where you're a farmer. Farming, and nothing else. Stardew Dungeons. Tux, I can do that. And not only can I do that, I can turn it into an adventure. I can literally make an adventure of common people. Not only can I do it, I have written stuff to do it. And if you think I'm kidding, all it takes is for you to one day be out in the field with a plow. Your plow hits something hard, okay? And so, you know, the yoke on your oxen breaks, and the oxen goes wandering off. You go to look and see what exactly your plow caught. Your plow got caught in a rock. There's a rock in the middle of your field. So you and a few other people come out with pickaxes. You're going to break this rock up so you can get back to work. So you start picking away at the rock. You're chipping off pieces, and then all of a sudden, there's a large crack, a thunderous boom. The ground cracks open underneath you, and you all fall through into a cave. Now you're all in a cave, and you have to explore this cave to at least find your way out. But what do you find along the way? And the adventure begins. I just turned your farmers into main characters. Don't tempt me. I can do it. You had that coming. You know you did. You have only yourself to blame. So along those same lines, when asked about a Tholian character, I said, number one, your Tholian is not going to be normal. Alright? So if your Tholian is already not normal, maybe your Tholian doesn't agree with what's going on. Your Tholian takes a ship and gets out of Tholian space. Alright? Now, obviously, the biggest problem for a Tholian is because they live in a demon-class planet. So they're going to have to wear an environment suit everywhere. So when they get to Federation space, they're inside an environment suit. They meet with the Federation. And then what happens then? Well, is the Federation just going to shoot the Tholian on sight? Well, I mean, maybe. Especially the way Star Trek has gone nowadays. But no, the Federation isn't just going to kill the Tholian. They're going to say, wait, this Tholian wants to come and talk to us? Absolutely! Do you know when the last time the Federation got to talk to a Tholian was? Never! Because Tholians are absolutely hostile to literally every single living thing they encounter. They are just as hostile, if not more hostile, than Species 847-2. You can negotiate with the Borg. You cannot negotiate with the Tholians. So your character as a Tholian shows up at Starfleet and wants to talk. Starfleet's going to be all over that. They're going to want to know everything about you, everything about your culture, everything about your race, everything about your planet. They are going to spend the next 10 years asking you every single question they can think of. And by the way, they would put you up in the absolute nicest accommodations. They would give you everything you could possibly want, so long as you keep feeding them information. A Tholian could literally walk into Starfleet headquarters and have the red carpet rolled out for them. Because it would be just such a monumentous occasion for Starfleet to actually meet a Tholian. The only problem I had with it is, you want to play a Tholian character on this ship, I'm afraid that Starfleet wouldn't let you. Because if you have a Tholian on a ship, the ship could blow up. We can't lose our only Tholian. We can't get another one. I mean, how many more centuries is it going to take for one more of them to wander into Federation space? But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be done. Now, it would be a very challenging character, because, as we're going to discuss right now making it, JP says maybe somebody finds a Tholian newborn survivor of calamity or something. The problem is you can't. You gotta think about it. Tholians live on demon-class planets. Let's see. Tholian physiology, right here. They are crystalline species, hard carapace, let's see. Visible neck, semi-transparent dome membrane. Here we go. Tholian biology requires high temperatures of around 480 Kelvin, or roughly 207 degrees Celsius, 404 degrees Fahrenheit. That is really hot. That is like lead meltingly hot. I mean, it's not hot enough to melt steel, but it is above the flash point for most materials. So, if you're going to find an abandoned Tholian infant, it has got to be on a planet like this. Sorry about that. Which means that you would have to be there for some reason. And JP says, I picture the Ambassador Kosh's quarters in an encounter suit for a Tholian. Yes! You are absolutely right. So, a Tholian is going to require an extremely hot environment to live in, or it's going to have to wear a suit all the time. Fortunately, we can do all of that. So, here, let's get out of here. Let's come back to armor. So when we look at armor, let's see. Armor is the most easy, cost-effective way to protect yourself. Yes, yes, yes. Most suits of armor consist of a helmet, gloves, boots, and bodysuit that offers head-to-toe protection. Unless otherwise specified, the boots include functionality that can anchor your feet to a solid surface in a zero-gravity environment, allowing you to orient yourself or return to normal footing when needed. Now, this is important because this means that every single suit of armor, unless otherwise stated, is an encounter suit. Tux says he'll be our engineer. He lives in the reactor. I like it. But yes, any armor, unless otherwise specified, will be an encounter suit. Let's see. Under hazards. Decontamination jets, decompression. Decompression, yeah, this isn't actually telling me anything about that. That's just the hazard. Environment. I think I want environment. There we go. Environment. Vacuum. The void of space is empty. Of course, we know that. The greatest danger is being introduced to a vacuum where you immediately suffocate. Decompression occurs when this happens suddenly. However, all of the stuff can be negated entirely if you're wearing armor. Like if you're wearing your armor and helmet and everything else, then none of this really applies. So for a Tholian character, they would just have to live in their armor every time they come into a normal environment. But it actually gets even better than that. So even if the character was in an environment suit, well, what happens if the suit gets damaged? Because as it says right here, let's see, if they're exposed to temperatures of around 380 Kelvin or less, their carapace would fracture. This was painful and distressing. A Tholian subjected to such temperature regime could be coerced to cooperate. In temperatures even lower, a Tholian would freeze solid and shatter. So they will literally freeze to death in anything less than 380 Kelvin, which is still really hot. But that's where we get back to environment. So what if your Tholian is wearing a suit? And then what if your Tholian suit gets damaged? Well, let's come down here to cold dangers. So for a normal character, an unprotected character in cold weather, which is, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, has to make a fortitude save every hour or take 1d6 non-lethal cold damage, which means that eventually you could pass out from it. Severe cold requires a fortitude save every 10 minutes. Or take non-lethal damage. And JP says they're also weak to sonic weapons. Yes, but that's not what I want to talk about right now. Other weaknesses I'm not getting involved in at the moment. I just want to talk about the difficulties they would have in living. Not even talking about combat, just living. So extreme cold deals 1d6 lethal damage per minute, no saving throw. But all of these, if you notice, these take place over time. So if you had a Tholian character inside an environment suit and somebody shot a bullet and put a hole in the suit, well, the suit's not just going to suddenly become ice cold, it's got heaters in it. It's providing an atmosphere. So you wouldn't just suddenly go to dead. You would go to unprotected now, which means that now, because there's a hole in the suit, your Tholian character has to make these fortitude saves every hour. Alternately, there's also the danger of suffocation, because they have their own atmosphere. So I guess we would go with either toxic or thin. So a thin atmosphere would cause you difficulty breathing. A typical thin atmosphere would require you to make a fortitude save every hour or become fatigued. Okay. Or a toxic atmosphere, because our atmosphere would technically be toxic to them. Let's see. It depends. All right, toxic is very variable, so I would have to make a determination of that on the spot. But we could just go with thin, because their atmosphere is thinning, which means that it would not be as lethal as everyone thinks. Now, if you were to just like rip the helmet off of a Tholian, then maybe we skip all this and just go straight to, like, you know, suffocation and freezing. But otherwise, yeah, it'd be okay. Then there's a little matter of, you're right, where would they live? You would have to shove one into the reactor, right? Actually, no. We're going to go back to starships for a moment. And we're going to go down to expansion bays. Right there. Sealed environment chamber. To have a Tholian on the ship, you would have to take one expansion slot and make it a dedicated sealed environment chamber. According to this, sealed environment chamber... let's see. Breathe methane gas or survive this. Basically, you can make the environment inside anything you want it to be. So to have a Tholian crew member on board, they need to have their own environment suit, their own armor, and they need to have a sealed environment chamber. Tux says on the plus side, she's not as worried about hull breaches pulling her into space. Well, I mean, not gonna die immediately. Still gonna die eventually, though. JP says they'd be like the navigators in Dune. Actually, that's a pretty good example, because, yeah, they totally would be. Navigators cannot exist outside of their spice-rich environment. However, I dare say that she would be in a better position. And I don't know what the new navigators look like. I just remember the old ones from the first movie, because like they were completely incapable of doing anything but navigate. The new ones, I do believe, are actually, though, like, better, but they have to wear like spice suits just to keep them supplied with it, but they can at least like get up and walk around. At least that's my understanding. Alright, so we still need to have some kind of crystalline race. And I don't think we're going to get it here. No, I don't think we're going to get it here. What else could I use? Legendary games? I don't actually know what you've got here. So... in addition to traditional game-related statistics of alien species, there's an abundance to explore about the specific nature of characters. This is all the same stuff that we've already got other places. I'm a little bit tempted to use androids, possibly. And they already aren't really living. But maybe that's wrong, actually. We may have to just do this entirely from scratch, to be honest. I don't think that I'm going to be able to use anyone as a template. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get away with any kind of template for this one. I think I got to do this one completely from scratch. Okay, that's fine. I've done this before. I've done this before. So, first things first. We're going to need our ability adjustments. So, ability adjustments. We can have 2 positives and 1 negative. 1 negative is really easy. We can penalize the charisma because Tholian. So what are we going to give them instead? Well, they do have 6 legs. which leads me to believe that a Tholian would probably be very dexterous. Really hard to knock one over. And probably pretty smart, too. Like, my immediate thought was maybe Constitution, given that they are made of crystal. Crystal is hard. But they're only really tough in comparison to us. Compared to each other, because Tholians probably exclusively use sonic weapons against each other. Maybe they're not that tough. But then again, maybe that's also worth considering. If Tholians had to use sonic weapons against each other because they're not resistant to anything else, then perhaps we should do the Constitution. So perhaps plus Dex plus Con minus Charisma. Very physically tough, but nothing really special when it comes to the mental side. Pretty average in intelligence and wisdom, and just generally not very friendly. Okay. There's also alternate adjustments here, but we don't need that. We just need to have the one adjustment. Alright, racial traits. Size and type. So, size will be medium. Type. Type. I'm going to put type crystal. Tux says she'd have a special attack of exiting her suit and grappling a target. I'm pretty sure that if she did that, she would die before her target. I mean, you got to think about it like this. Let's say that you're in the middle of the Arctic or the Antarctic, okay, whatever. And you want to kill somebody. So you leave the station naked in the Antarctic with a knife. And you want to try to stab somebody who's outside in full winter gear. I feel like that even though you're the one that's armed and dangerous, you're probably going to die first. However, intimidating presence? Close. She may actually get a bonus to intimidate, but not intimidating presence, because that's different. Alright, so racial traits, we've got that, so size and type. Now, features. Features. Okay. Now, here's where I want to look at a couple of different things. First off, Sheerans. There's got to be some race that has more than 4 legs. And I want to look at that. And I don't mean centaurs. Yeah, but I agree, JP. Should not have any kind of, or should be much harder to knock down, very stable. I just want to find rules that are already in here so that I don't make a contradicting rule. Let's see. D20 games. I looked through these before, but I don't remember what they are. Let's see. Scaly black skin, beady eyes, wide fang mouths. No, not what I want. What about this? Transgenics. No. Bipeds. Tortarian. Right, these are the turtle people. You have in shell... Wait, stability, right here. See? This is why I wanted to look. Stability. Is there a giant scorpion or spider to look at? The short answer is no. There is not. Let me write this down real quick, though. Let's see. So, stability. There's going to be a lot of traits, actually. There is a bestiary, but it's not a bestiary as you're really familiar with. Mostly because, like, there's not a whole lot here. So, creating monsters, creature types, aberrations, animal, construct, dragon, fae, humanoid, magical beast, ooze, outsider, plant, undead, vermin. Let's check vermin. Alright, so we do have beetles down here. Let's look at the giant stag beetle. So what does it have? Offensive abilities, other abilities. It doesn't really have anything. It's got the ability to trample, it's got mindless, but nothing really in the way of any kind of special feats or features. Certainly nothing that says that it gets any kind of bonus to not being knocked over. Here's a... Don't you stop working on me, mouse. Here's a giant scorpion. So... it's got claws, and it's got stingers, it's got the ability to constrict, it's mindless, but there's, like, nothing here about keeping it being knocked over. Ooh! Giant scorpion usually weighs between 2,000 and 6,000 pounds. Could you imagine a 3-ton scorpion? The scorpion doesn't need to kill me. I'm going to die just looking at it. So yeah, there's nothing really in the bestiary that's going to help here. Unfortunately. But we got what we needed. It's got stability. What else do they have, though? So this is where we're going to have to, I think, we're going to have to add a few things. So we're going to have to add hot, because they come from a hot planet, and they are hot themselves. Now, does that mean that they're attractive? I don't know. Ask somebody who's into bugs. So they need to be hot, and they are going to be toxic. And so that will cover the environment. They come from a hot and toxic environment. That means that if they're in anything less than a hot environment, they will start to freeze. If they're in anything... or if they're in a different atmosphere, then they will die of toxicity. And JP says the Gatreon is 6-legged, has a trample attack or multi-attack for melee. I'm not certain if I want to give a Tholian character trample. It's kind of an option, but... I mean, how big is this Gatreon? Usually for something to be, or to have trample, it needs to be large. Like, you don't see trample on very many medium-sized creatures. Some, I'm not going to say none, but it's very much not common. And then, let's see. One thing that I might be able to find here in the bestiary. Creatures by types. Where's constructs? Got a crystal golem here. So, crystal golem. Has construct immunities, damage resistance to adamantine. I don't see anything here about it being weak to sonic, though, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping that there would be something in here. Tuck says a 1/6 flying wall with trample. That's funny on like 3 different ways. Except you know what? There's nothing that says you can't apply or you can't put equipment on walls. So I'm going to throw a Sword of Cauldra on there. And maybe a Fire Shrieker. And maybe a few other things because there's no limit to the amount of equipment you can put on it. And there's going to be like a 12/6 flying wall with trample. Come at me, bro. Okay, here's what I think I'm going to do with the Tholian. I'm going to give them a damage resistance. I'm going to say DR 2 DR2 Sonic. JP says look up Banshee and use the effect from Sonic Attack. I can look at it. Banshee. I wonder where that would be. It's not going to be under here, I know that much. I wonder if they even have one in here. Hold on, I may have to check my other computer for this one. PFSRD. If I borrow the Banshee from Pathfinder, let's see, the Wail of a Banshee. Banshees just pretty much cause death. Actually, there might be a different way to go about this. I still like the idea of giving it a damage reduction, which was then subverted by that. But let me look at something. Damage. Hazards. Let me look at this. So, wait. Oh, this is like space hazards. Never mind. Environment? So here in environment, we've got hot, we've got cold. What about extreme sound? Radiation, sleep deprivation, starvation. I don't see anything there about it. Okay, different way. What if we look at weapons? Let's go back to weapons. Because I'm sure that... Wait, hold on. Where? There it is. Sonic weapons. Damage dealt by loud noise or damaging frequencies. Okay. So... where can we find one? Sonic. Target armor class, let's see. If a weapon deals only energy damage, it attacks AC. Energy damage includes acid, cold, electricity, and sonic. Okay. Yes. Let's see. Reading weapon tables. See weapon damage for information. Alright. Let's see. Sonic weapons. So we've got a pulse gauntlet here. Let's see. When the gauntlet strikes its target, it releases a surge of sonic energy. That doesn't help. No, I think this is the way to go, is to just give them the damage reduction. That way, if you're using a sonic weapon, you can overcome the damage reduction. But otherwise, if you shoot them with a laser, then, yeah, the laser is just going to, like, refract. In fact, you shoot them with plasma, they go, ooh, it tickles. Shoot them with electricity, it's crystal, it's not conductive. Yeah, so basically Sonic is the only thing that you can really hurt them with. Maybe I should up that damage resistance a little bit. Maybe make it a 3? Alright, that's not bad though. That's not bad. So let's go ahead. We'll merge those. We'll merge those. So if we were going to make a Tholian character, we could roll stats just as normal. We would get our ability adjustments. It's a medium creature. Its subtype is crystal. When we get everything else, it gets stability, so it gets like a +4, I think it said, against combat maneuvers to either push or knock down. It requires a hot environment, requires a toxic environment. Damage reduction of 3, though, only overcome by Sonic. That's pretty much all any other race has. So, I mean, size and type. And then they get an ability, an ability, an ability, an ability. There's alternate racial traits, but I don't want to get into those because I just want to make a playable Tholian race, not 16 of them. Yeah, that's really all we need. That's pretty good right there. I'm going to call that good. So there's our Tholian class. Or Tholian race, rather. And then, you know, your Tholian can be whatever race or class you want it to be. So, I mean, we got biohackers, envoys, which are like diplomats, mechanics, probably not mystics or technomancers or witch warpers, because we're not going to have the magic. But, I mean, soldiers, Solarians. Solarian's how you play a Jedi. We can actually have Jedi in Star Trek if you want. Because there's no reason why you can't. They're actually more like paladins than anything else because they have like the soul of a star living within them or something like that. But I mean, they all use like plasma weapons, like plasma swords. They call them doshko. They're basically lightsabers. They're different, but they're basically the same. Okie dokie then. Next up. That is not what I wanted, but close. That is a jellyfish. There we go. Okie dokie then. The Farpoint Nidarian. Now, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of information from this. So it shows up in the mission Echoes of Light. And that's about it. However, there's this at Memory Alpha. Oh, JP, don't worry about this. Trust me, this is not going to be as hard as you think it is. This is not going to be as hard as you think it is. Because all I'm really going to be doing is making essentially a human, but with a couple of extra things. And you're right, you said we thought about playing its role as a humanoid avatar. Which means that it's actually going to be pretty average or maybe a little bit below average. And it's going to be a little bit below average because when we look at here, because this is the way that I like to play. I like to use these maps. Where's a good ship? Here's my ship. This is my freighter ship. So the way I work this is you can see that every room has consoles and chairs. That means that when we play, obviously your character will have a speed. So like if we come back to here, and we go to Starjammer, we go to these. Thought speed was in here. Is speed not in here? Might not be in here. Character creation, raise class, da 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 da. Okay, carrying capacity. Where the hell is speed? There it is. Your character's land speed at the beginning of play is 30 feet unless they have an ability that modifies it or penalizes it from armor encumbrance. So everybody can move 30 feet, otherwise 6 squares. Now if you double move, which is called a hustle, you can move 60 feet. If you just flat out run, you can move 120. But that means that when we play on a map, and we will absolutely have a map like this to play on for your ship, that means that if you want to, if you're a science officer and you want to, say, go balance the shields, you will have to come down here to the shield emitter and sit down in one of these chairs. If you have to go to the engines to affect something, you'll have to come to the power core to do so. Or if you want to be, the gunner and you want to save the weapons, you'll have to take the stairs, and in this ship, they actually do correlate, so you come up to these stairs, either side, which will bring you up to this forward bay, and then you have to enter this room, and you'll have to sit down at the weapons if you want to fire the weapons. Is it a pain in the ass? Kinda. Means you might want to take some time to actually kinda maybe run some drills, maybe figure out where everyone's going to be at any given time. A little bit of future planning, just to make things easier. But what we can do with a Nidarian is, you're right, you will be an avatar. And by being an avatar, you will have certain restrictions, like you will only be able to go so far away from a Nidarian ship. But what it also means is that a Nidarian avatar would be able to operate any one of these systems from anywhere on the ship without actually having to touch it. A Nidarian could stay on the bridge and operate the engines. So while the avatar itself might not be terribly strong, in space, it would be incredibly strong. JP says, my thoughts were Nidarian consciousness is massive. Would extra sensory ability good for comms or sensor positions? My answer to that is kind of a no, but not for the reason you're probably thinking. I think it's personally a waste. The reason being, extra sensory ability good for comms or sensors. When it comes to sensors and you're going to scan, let's go back to Starjammer here. Let's go back to combat, space combat. So if you're a science officer and you want to scan, you're going to roll a d20. And the DC is going to be 5 plus 1.5 times the tier of the ship. Plus its bonus from defensive countermeasures. Okay, so what do you get? For you, it requires your starship to have sensors. You must attempt a computer check. So computer check, if we come back here to skills, it is just another one of any of these skills. So depending on what you took, you will get skill points per level, plus you'll get a certain number of bonus skills per your intelligence. And if you want to play a really smart Nidarian, then, here you go. Then, skill checks. So every rank that you put in it gets you 1 point. If it is a trained class skill, which means that it is a class skill and you have put at least 1 point in it, you get another +3. Then there's associated ability score modifiers. So if it's like an intelligence skill, which computers is, if you're really intelligent, like you have an 18 intelligence, that's another +4. Do you kind of get where I'm going? And if your starship has a computer in it, you can even use that bonus. You have bonus on top of bonus on top of bonus on top of bonus to already scan something. I could give it more bonuses, but I feel like it would, number one, be excessive, and number two, it would be far too situational and niche to really put on the character. Whereas the ability to control a Nidarian ship from anywhere inside of it, while it seems like it is also very niche, and it is because it would only work on a Nidarian ship, it means that it is within your choice. You fly Nidarian ships. Okay? This is just the choice that you're making. And you're kind of going to have to get the rest of your players to agree with you, because you guys can't just go to the shipyard and pick up a new ship. I mean, once you pick up the Nidarian ship, you're kind of stuck with it. Now, something that we might work on is perhaps a Nidarian ship can grow. So perhaps we can have the ship grow with you and say, you can change the frame size of your Nidarian ship just by paying the cost. To explain this better, instead of Starship Combat, let's go to Starships. You might start off with a medium-sized Explorer-class Nidarian ship. There we go. That means that your ship would have 55 HP, it would have no damage threshold, a critical threshold of 11, it would have mounts for these things, it would have expansion bays, but it would cost 12 BP. What we could say to make this less painful is that if you want to play the Nidarian character, if people wanted to spend the extra 3 build points, your character, the Nidarian ship, could grow to become a transport, meaning that it would cost you the extra 3 build points, but you would gain an additional 15 hit points and an additional 3 to your critical threshold. And the arcs for your ship would change. Now, that isn't to say that they would just fill. If you already had 4 light weapons and you wanted to go from being an explorer to a transport, this also has 4 light weapons on it. It has 1 forward, 1 aft, 2 on a turret. These could translate directly over, but you wouldn't just get suddenly a free heavy weapon. You could pick up one the next time you were in space dock. But until you did that, it would just remain an empty slot. But that means that you wouldn't have to trade out another ship. You would just be able to grow into it. It would literally make it a living ship. You would grow from having 4 expansion bays to 5 expansion bays. I think that it would work well. The same thing is also true in reverse, I think, where if you wanted to shrink your ship, you probably could. You could say your ship is going down a tier, so go from the transport down to the explorer. You'll have less HP, less critical threshold, less expansion bays, which means that if one of those expansion bays is filled, whatever was in it's going to be gone. You're not getting a refund on it. But in exchange, you're also going up in maneuverability. So we can make it so you wouldn't have to lose your character just to change ships. Could make it very valuable. JP says that works well. Don't want to make it weird for people, though. So long as they're on board with it, then great. If not, well, I mean, unless somebody's got a real hard-on for playing something like, I don't know, the O-Berth, for whatever reason, I don't think anybody would have a problem with it. But it's something that would have to be discussed, because everyone would have to agree on it. But I like this. So we're going to go with, Nidarian Avatar. So, ability adjustments. The ability adjustments, I think, are actually going to be very easy, because we're just going to borrow from humans. And this is going to be +2 to any one stat. And JP says, I see the appeal of getting different ships, adds flavor. That's true. I mean, everybody likes to get a new ship. However, when your ship grows up, it is basically a new ship. I'm not sure how we would change the map for it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, what else we want to give this thing? Also, I need to get back on this. There we go. Alright, well, let's start with the elephant in the room then. Ship connection. We've got the ship connection, obviously. And that on its own is like probably the biggest thing about it, because it doesn't really need anything else. I mean, the fact that it's connected to the ship means that it can't go certain distance away from the ship. But while it's connected to the ship, I mean, it could conceivably access the ship from inside of a building. We'll have to determine what the range is for that. I may go back to like telepathy rules, and honestly, telepathy doesn't go that far. JP says one large circle with pizza pie compartments. That's really hard to draw on a grid. But don't worry, we'll make it work. And like I said, the fact is that if it does grow, that means that technically the rooms could move. So the way that I work this is, I don't think that I have it on here. Let me pull up my other spreadsheet on my other computer. So here's how this works when I'm designing ships, because I have a different system that I use for designing the ships, because there is no map generator in Starjammer for ships. They don't want you to consider that. They want you to just say, well, I'm going to be using the engineering this turn. I'm an engineer this turn. Oh, well, I guess I'll be on the guns then. While I see the simplicity in that, I hate it. Give me a map any day. Maps are fun. People like maps. And I will go to my grave saying that. People like maps. Give people maps. So, when I make my rooms, we need a room for the bridge, the sensors, the weapons, life support, a room for the computer, the hyperspace engines, or in this case, the warp core, the shields, the power core, which in this case would be a fusion reactor, thrusters, the crew quarters, and a room for any defensive countermeasures that you have. So, on its own, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 rooms. Right out the bat. Now, generally speaking, I have a rule in place for how big the rooms are, depending on the tier of the ship. And yes, the Nidarian will have its own engine room. The reason being, you gotta have somewhere for crits to go. And I can explain my critical system as well, but I'll get to that in a second. So we have 11 rooms right off the bat that need to be on the ship. Then, starships. Let's say you wanted to be a transport, okay? So you want to be a transport class vessel. You have 5 expansion bays. That's 5 more rooms. Whether you want to make them cargo bays, or the sealed environment chamber, or a tech lab, or whatever, each one of them is a room. Each one of them needs to be filled in. Especially if you want one of them to be a sick bay. If you're going to have a medical quarters, it needs to have a room in there so that when characters are injured, they can be put in. So I'm going to go back to my example, my ship. And I'm just going to go down the list. There's the bridge. Pretty simple. There's sensors. Weapons are right next to it. Life support is down here with all the tanks. The computer is over here. It's on the engineering deck towards the bow. Hyperspace engine is engineering deck towards the aft. It's aft starboard. JP says, do we have a doctor or an EMH? I guess that depends on who you're playing with. You might want to suggest that somebody wants to be a doctor. As far as an EMH goes? Ooh, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. I'm not sure how I would handle that. My first thought was like, Ooh, wait. We can make an expansion bay out of that. Hold that thought. We can do that. Okay, but first, on my ship, shields is forward and port on the engineering level. Power core is aft and port side on the engineering level. Thrusters are obvious. And Tuxedo says EMH, it's the emergency medical hologram. It's, what's his name? Robert Picardo? Every time he pops into existence, it says, please state the nature of your medical emergency. So maybe we can do this. Anyway, let's see, that's power core, thrusters, crew quarters I have on the crew deck. They're right here. And defensive countermeasures I actually don't have on this ship, so not really important. And then expansion bays. This ship actually has 9 of them. I have, or no, it has 10 of them, excuse me. I have 8 cargo bays here. We have 1 rec room and 1 guest quarters. So every single room on my ship's character sheet has been accounted for, and you can move in between them. So when we make the Nidarian ship, it will have all of these rooms in whatever configuration we want to make them. And we don't even necessarily have to have them touching, just as long as they're there, and we can even make passageways between them to give it a more organic feel. JP says, I want the Rios EMH. I don't know any other EMH other than Voyagers. If it's from the newer Star Treks, I haven't seen them and I don't plan on watching them. But now that you've mentioned it, where's our expansion base? Hyperspace engines, here we go, expansion bays. So we already have medical bays. So medical bay is 4 PCU and 8 BP. So a medical bay with EMH. EMG? EMH. So, free doctor with, and what do I want to have with this? Skill. Life science? No. Skill checks. Oh, wait, no. Medicine, right there. So, medicine, intelligence, trained only. Okay, so, free doctor and a plus, let's see. If we gave him a 20 in intelligence, that's a plus 5. If we give him, or make him level 10, which is perfectly average, if we make him level 10, that's 15. If it's trained, that's another plus 3, that's 18. So that will be a plus 18 in medicine. And for the cost of it, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost us 6 PCU for the hologram emitters. But it's going to cost 16 build points for the emitters, and the and the additional computer that comes along with it. Because I don't think there's anything in here like an extra computer, is there? No, there's really not. There actually are other computers, though. Let's take a look at computers. So for a +8 computer... Well, let's see. Let's look at our mono nodes. So +2 mono node computer would be a +4. That's only a +2, though. I mean, I guess it depends on, Oh, JP says as long as the emitters are shipwide. No, he's stuck in sickbay. You have to go see him. This doctor does not make house calls. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this off. So it's going to be 4 again. But it's going to be plus computer. This is going to go back down to 8 plus computer. And this is going to be a free doctor. Now, I'm still going to let him keep his intelligence. Well, no, actually, I'm not going to let him keep his intelligence. So it's going to be trained. So it's going to be a minimum of 13. We'll go with plus computer. And there we go. So, to get a medical bay with an EMH, you will have to get the medical bay, and you'll have to buy another computer to go with it. The PCU and the BP will be included with the extra computer for the EMH. And you can't fit the medical program in a mononode mobile emitter. He's far too big for that. You have to take out all of the singing. And all the theatrics. And don't even get me started on the command subroutines. Those are not going to fit at all. Like, they won't even fit in the ship. Don't even think about trying to add, you know, some kind of emergency command hologram. It's not going to happen. Okay, though. So now we've got a medical bay with an EMH, if you want to spend the money on it. Let's see. Telepathy. I need telepathy. Lashuntas have telepathy. They have limited telepathy, though. So that is anybody within 30 feet. Wait, here we go. Telepathy. A creature with the telepathy special ability can mentally communicate with another creature within a certain range in a specified creature's description, though the range of the telepathy is usually 100 feet. Okay. But here's the thing. When determining range for this Nidarian avatar, it's an avatar. The brain is still going to be the ship. Which means that in order... Well, no. Almost everything Starship-based is times 10. So that would mean that the Nidarian will be able to reach 100 times 10 is 1,000 feet. That's actually not very far, though. What if I made it 10,000 feet, though? How many miles is 10,000 feet? A mile is like 5,200 feet or something like that, isn't it? Not exact, but it's close. Where's my phone at? There we go. Let's see. Feet in a mile. Yeah, 5,280 feet. So if we gave the ship a telepathic range of, say, 2 miles. I don't know, 2 miles still seems awfully short. Two miles still seems awfully short. Because, I mean, you could cover 2 miles easily just getting to a dungeon that you had to go through. Or, you know, or a base or an outpost or something that you were trying to get into. 2 miles seems a little bit... Problem with orbital range is that if we go with orbital range, it almost seems like it doesn't matter. Orbital range is, I believe, 1,000 kilometers. Or is it 100 kilometers? I forget. Let me check this. So let's see. Let's see. It says the atmosphere of Earth is about 60 miles, which would be about 100 kilometers. Yeah. Well, that still means that you would have a rather limited area if you were on the ground. That means that you definitely could not split up with the party if the party wanted to go somewhere else. Well, no, actually, I guess you probably could. But it means that the ship would have to follow you, not the party. Actually, no, that kind of works. I guess that does kind of work. That means that you could come down to a planet. And the ship would literally have to stay directly above you in orbit. It would follow you in orbit. That means that it could be all the farther if the rest of the party had to come back and join it. It also means that you couldn't send the ship away. Like, you would really have to, you would have to take your character back up to the ship and separate from the party if the ship had to leave for some reason. Like there's a Klingon bird of prey approaching or something like that. Because while you could control the ship while you're inside it, I don't think you could control the ship from orbit? Well, no, actually, maybe you could, though. It is an avatar, not your actual character. Your character would be the ship. No, actually that kind of works now that I think about it. That means that if the ship had to leave orbit, like a Klingon shows up and the ship has to leave orbit, the ship could absolutely do that. What it does mean, though, is that perhaps your avatar is, wandering along with the rest of the party, and when your ship leaves orbit, your avatar just drops. I am just like flat out unconscious, immediately hits the ground. Boom. And it's not until you come back within range that you can pick up your avatar again. Or somebody would have to carry it back. It does also mean, though, that if you were to land on the planet, it would be quite an extensive radius that you could explore. I'm actually pretty good with that. It does mean, however, that like you would not be able to transport to another ship unless you were like within docking distance of it. Because if every hex on the map is 10 kilometers, and your telepathic range is only 100, then yeah, other people might be able to teleport over, but you couldn't unless you got the ship within docking distance. Well, I don't think that it would necessarily be a liability. It just means that you would have to think about these things ahead of time. It means that maybe you don't just beam everybody down. I mean, maybe you have a transporter on board. Maybe you use an expansion bay for a transporter, but maybe you land the ship. Maybe instead of transporting over to another vessel, you actually dock with it. Just because, or just so you have these extra precautions and so you can use these features. It doesn't say that you can't have the other options, but they stay as options. So I'm going to go ahead and say ship telepathy 100 kilometers. The only other thing that I can think of that we might be missing here, now that I'm looking at it, is that it is an avatar. Which means that it doesn't really die. So if your avatar is killed, and it could absolutely be killed, it wouldn't necessarily be a loss for your character because your character is technically the ship. So it would have to be regenerative. What I think is going to happen, though, let me check something. Let me look at something. Okay, I have an idea. Where are spells? Magic and spells are right there. I want mystics? I don't even know if I can find it in here. If it's even a thing. It might not even be a thing in here. It's not. Okay. In that case... Here we go. Okay, don't show that again. Tux says, Shadow has an idea. Run! Oh, Tux, if you only knew. You should have been running a long time ago. Okay. Familiars. I mean, this is basically what an avatar is going to be. It's going to be a familiar, except it's a familiar that you get to embody and control. If a familiar is dismissed, lost, or dies, it can be replaced 1 week later through a specialized ritual that costs 200 gold pieces per wizard level. It takes 8 hours to complete. Now, obviously you're not a wizard. We're not using gold pieces. But it does take 200 gold pieces per wizard level. What I think we're going to do is I think we're going to have the avatar regenerate 1 week later per level. So if your avatar dies as a level 1, you get 1 week's worth of time, you have a new avatar. But if you're a level 10 avatar at this point, you could potentially not have an avatar for the better than 3 months. Well, no, a little bit less than 3 months. 3 months would be 12. But you know what? I don't feel bad about that. You should be punished if you die. For most people, that would mean that they lose their entire character. It can't be brought back except by, like, really out there means. Even Star Trek technically hasn't cured death. JP says, I'd be a sentient ship then. Yes, for those 10 weeks, you absolutely would just be the ship until you were done growing a new avatar. That means that if anyone else goes on adventures, they go down to planets, they go down to whatever, you can't leave the ship. You're stuck on the ship because you are the ship. But I think that's a pretty appropriate punishment. And I like it. I think I like it so much I'm going to use it. Well, not regenerate, but respawn 1 week per level. And then, of course, if the ship goes down, I mean, that's it. That's it for you. Like, everyone else has to worry about getting shot or something, but everyone is pretty safe in combat. Now, I use a different crit system, which actually does make it a little bit more dangerous for people. See, normal crits in Starjammer, they just damage the system. And they say if say the engines get they get hit with a crit. So now they're glitching. Another hit, they're malfunctioning, and another hit, they're wrecked. By the default Starjammer rules, that's it. You can't go any higher than wrecked. My system, however, I do something different. Not only in my system can a system be wrecked, but let's say the power core is wrecked, okay? And there's another crit that hits this room. I will, because this room is 10 by 10, I will roll a D100 and I'll start a fire in this room. Because the room has been critted again. There's nothing left to break except for the room itself. So I will just start a fire in this room. And that fire can technically grow. And the more it grows, the more dangerous it gets. That also technically means that if your character is inside of here, you could technically be hit by it. You could catch on fire, you could burn to death. Or I mean, if several critical hits hit this room, maybe the doors get blocked off. Maybe you're stuck in this room and you can't get out. Now you're facing suffocation dangers. So it's not like it's entirely safe for the crew, but in Starship combat, here's how Starship combat works. In Starship combat, you go back and forth shooting at each other. Everybody has a certain number of hit points. When your hit points drop to 0, your starship doesn't just explode. your starship fails. So you lose power, or you lose normal power, you lose the ability to move the ship, to fire the weapons. Your ship is just dead in the water. But it's not destroyed, it's just drifting. You have to reduce a ship to negative its max hit points to have it blow up. This does mean, however, that if your character is the ship, and your character, the ship, is reduced to 0 hit points, your character is now unconscious. So now, in space combat, if you lose the fight, like say they disable your ship and now they're going to come and board you and try to take the ship over, not only is the ship disabled, but you're also down a person too. You can't use your avatar if your character is unconscious. It has some definite drawbacks. It has some amazing advantages, and I think that's going to make it a really balanced character. I'm really liking the idea, and I'm thinking there's not a whole lot more that I really have to do than this. I think this is going to be great for a Nidarian avatar character. It just requires a Nidarian vessel to work. JP says, but I'd be regenerating naturally instead of waiting for repair. Maybe. We may have to look into that, because perhaps we have to make an actual character sheet for, or a race sheet for the Nidarian ship itself. That might involve natural healing. But if we're going to talk about natural healing, it's probably going to be on the same level as, say, the shields, which will regenerate shield points like 1 or 2 every minute. But consider this. If we're going to give you natural healing, you might not be able to be repaired. I mean, think about that for a minute. If it's a living hull, maybe you can't repair it. What are you going to do? Start bolting metal plates onto it? That's not going to work for a living hull. So that might completely take the idea of repairs out entirely, which means that if your ship gets damaged, you might have no other options but to wait for natural repairs. Why don't we take a look at something? Let's see, character creation, character hit points. Because if we're going to do this like a character, alignment, initiative, saving throws, where is hit points? Finishing details? Armor class, attack bonuses, DD, homeworld. Maybe not here. What about combat? Because healing afterwards will be part of combat, right? Special abilities, bonuses. JP says, use my combat actions to regen or heal like a normal character uses a hypo spray. Could you imagine the hypo spray you would need to heal a ship? You would need another ship and a tractor beam just to administer it. I don't think I'm going to find what I need to in here. Compatibility conversion, combat, downtime? Provide long-term care, maybe? Okay, so this is in medicine. Let's take a look here. Alright, so first aid. As a standard action, you can use medicine to stop a bleed or administer first aid to a dying creature. Well, you wouldn't be dying. Tuxedo says, ship reaches into docking bay, pulls out a spray bottle the size of the ship, and sprays itself. Okay. Long-term care. You can use medicine to provide long-term care to a living, wounded creature. This can take a day or more. Requires a medicinal lab or medical bay on a starship and has a DC of 30. If you succeed, the patient recovers hit points and ability score damage, as well as recovers from poison states, at twice the normal rate. Yeah, but what is the normal rate? That's what I'm interested in. What is the normal rate? Let's see. Universal... Well, there's fast healing. Natural weapons. There's regeneration. There's unliving. Fast healing. No, that doesn't show me what I want to know. How does this work? You'd think that some of the stuff would be obvious, but it's very much not obvious. Skills. Oh, come on. I know there's rules in here for this. Maybe under conditions. Helpless, stick in, no. No, 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 no. That's not working. Ah, this is frustrating sometimes. It's like some of the stuff that you would think would be so very obvious, it's just not. Alright, let's try this. Healing. You can stabilize a dying creature, keep it from losing any more resolve points with any sort of healing. Wait, so while you're dying, if you have any more stamina points, any damage you take reduces those first. You lose one resolve point after that. Let's see. Magical and technological healing. Don't care. I just want to know what natural healing is. Yeah, this is so useless. I want to say, if I remember right, it's usually like 1 hit point per level per day, but I'm not positive on that. And they handle hit points differently in Starjammer than they do in Pathfinder. Yeah, that's how it works in Starjammer, is, with a full night's rest, 8 hours of sleep or more, you recover 1 hit point per character level. Any significant interruption during your rest prevents you from healing that night. If you stay in bed for the entire night and day, you recover twice your character's level in hit points. That's for Pathfinder, though. Let's see. What about... Let me check something. Instead of looking at this, I'm going to go back to the downtime. Maybe the answer was in there somewhere. So, downtime again. Was rest in here? Analyze, build shelter, common downtime activities. Dozens of options here. No. Okay, never mind. So, coordinate, drill, entertain, explore futures, gather supplies. None of these are what I want. I don't know, I may just have to go with the one rule that I know. And that is simply 1 hit point per 8-hour rest. Or rather, like 1 hit point per day. Because the starship is resting most of the time. Well, actually, no, I take it back. If it's traveling, it's not resting. Yeah, because if the starship was traveling, everybody on board might be resting, but the starship isn't. The starship would only really be able to rest if they were, like, in orbit around the planet. That's the only time the starship would get to rest. So I guess until I have a better option, I'm going to have to go with that. And just say that the ship will technically qualify as a race, cannot be repaired, and it can only heal. However, that does mean that technically you could apply long-term care to the ship while you were traveling. Maybe. I know, technically the ship isn't resting though. So you might have to just sit there while the crew provides long-term care to the ship until the ship is back up to full hit points. So if you sit there all day long, doing nothing, then that means that the ship would already be recovering at twice the hit points per level. If you applied long-term care, that would technically be 4 times. And so when you look at the number of hit points a ship has, at level 1, if it was an explorer, 55 hit points, you're talking just shy of a week. No. 6 times 8, 6 times 7, 42. So a little bit more than a week of fully dedicated healing on the ship to get it from 0 to full health at level 1. Now every increment is 10. So every 4 levels your ship would increase in hit points, and you'd have 10 more hit points to be able to heal. So it would take longer to recover. But you're also growing and getting tougher and everything else. So there's that option. JP says that would happen between sessions. Oh, don't you think you're going to pull that one on me. Trust me, we can make it fast, but we're not skipping it. It may come down to, hey, is anybody going to do anything today? No, no, no. All right, next day. How about today? Is anybody going to do anything today? No, no, no. All right, next day. But we're not just going to skip it. We can make it short, we just can't make it 0. And we don't even have to use this at all. I mean, we can go one or the other, but we can't really do both. So we can go with either natural healing or normal repairs. And I'm actually good with either one. So that'll have to be something that gets discussed later on. All right, so we've got a note down there for that. I mean, I like the idea of doing it that way. But I think that gives us our Tholian character, that gives us our Nidarian character. I don't know what anybody else is curious about or might want. We might have to revisit races later on. But I think we're about done here. I can't think of anything else to do. We've got the races we want. We've got our ship conversions, including an EMH, if we wanted one. All the weapons we could desire. We've got all of our ground equipment. Oh, that's actually so much nicer to look at. I should have done that with all the other ones. We got our ground equipment done. I think this module is ready to go. Now I just need to have players. Maybe I should put out some kind of feelers and see if I can get people interested that way. But I gotta be really picky about the people I bring on, because any of my players have to be pretty dedicated. Like, we have to be able to meet at regular times. And I don't really care what those regular times are. JP says, do we have enough players? No, we don't have enough players. Tux says, I feel like we're kind of at the now let's add some crazy stage. No, 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 no. The crazy comes after we start playing. Okay? This is not the crazy part. The crazy part is when I start adding players. And then the players are the crazy. That's how that works. But no, I don't have enough players yet. I have people that are interested. But first I need a list of interested people. Then I need to lock down a day. Now, whether that day is weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, I would hope for something more than monthly. Weekly would be my ideal. But I know that's kind of asking a lot of people sometimes. but we'll need to lock down a day and a time slot that it can be done in. And then I need to get a minimum of 4 people who are capable of maintaining that schedule. Especially since these games will go up on the channel. People will be able to see it. So there will be a schedule and it needs to maintain. So once I got a roster of potentials, we'll nail down a date. In doing so, when we nail down the date, we'll also be able to get our players for that day. That will determine pretty much everything. And I'm glad that you're good for Sundays. We'll find out what time everybody is good for when the time happens. For now, though, I just need a roster of applicants. And even though I could probably write up a form for people to fill out, I don't see how that's going to help. Primarily right now, I just want people who are going to be in the game to join the Discord server, because we're going to need the Discord server in order to play, because we'll need to have the voice communication. So anybody who's going to join the game needs to be in the server. Like, that is not optional. I'm not saying you gotta have a great microphone. God knows my microphone is not great. Believe me, I would love to get a new microphone someday. I just got my second patron yesterday. That's a little bit extra to help me keep going. But I'm not at buy new microphone yet. So don't worry about hardware or anything like that, but need to have a microphone to play. Then we'll get on to Roll20, we'll get people's characters made, and it should be good. But everyone will have to be on Discord first, then I'll go through the people I have there, lock down a day. Once we've got a day locked down, we'll work out the schedule. We'll work out times for me to work with each person to get characters made. Once I have characters made and I have the idea of what everybody wants to do, because that'll be part of the conversation, is part of it will be individual work, part of it will be group work, saying what story do we want. Once I've got that done, I will need maybe a couple of weeks tops to put together the campaign, and then we'll be able to start actually running the game. And then once we get done, or once we get the game running, it's great. As long as people can continue to show up. Missing a game here and there is not a big deal. I mean, these things happen. Things will always happen. You can't control it. My general rule of thumb is if you miss 3 games in a row, you're out. Like, unless somebody's dying. I don't have anything else to do, because I have to free up that space and bring in somebody who actually can commit. And it's not something that I relish doing, but I mean, we all have to do things that we don't want to do. That's one of the things I don't want to do, but I have to. Tux says, I find JP, me, and Blizz are good candidates if I can find a day we're all available. That said, yes, finding people that can keep showing up is the biggest problem I see with YouTube D&D. It is true. Blizz is already on board. I know what Blizz's availabilities are. Saturday is a good day for her. Tux said Saturday is a good day for him. Saturday is a great day for me, too, of course. I have a live stream in the morning on Saturdays, but, you know, later in the day, easily run. Of course, later in the day is relative, depending on where in the world people are. So, yeah, I feel, and I have no real proof of this, but I feel like I have 3 solid people already. I just need 1 or 2 more. before I can really get the ball rolling on this. But I mean, I do feel like we're close. This could happen soon. It's just going to be a matter of getting everything to line up. So I will probably leave a couple more messages in the Discord about this. I'll discuss it with the people that are there. See if maybe I can find a few more people who are interested. Finding reliable people is difficult, but not impossible. But yeah, if you're interested, you've got to be on the Discord. Like, that part is not negotiable. Anyway, though, we have been here for almost 4 hours now. I can't believe it's been almost 4 hours. But I have other things that I have got to get done today, which means that I'm going to have to cut off the stream here. We got a lot done, though. We got all the expansion base done. We've got 3 more races done. I'm going to count the Nigerian ship as a race. I think we're ready to go. I was maybe hoping to get a little bit of testing done. We did a little bit, just kind of discussing shipbuilding and discussing some of the stats and everything for these. I'll consider that testing a little bit. The next big step, I think, is going to be just putting it together and getting it done. So, not to put a whole pin in it, maybe a half a pin, but I'm going to call this one done. Needs to be prettied up a little bit more color, a little bit more borders and everything else. But yeah, this is done. This is a working Star Trek conversion module. I could pass this off to another experienced DM and say, here, make a game with it. And I am 95% confident that they could. I think this is pretty good. So, I'm going to save my work here. I'm going to take a bit of a break here. My throat hurts. I've been talking too much. But that's the name of the game. So I'm going to spend the rest of my day in quiet. Probably not talking until I have to record again tomorrow. Fortunately, I've already got the Rim of Time done today. So, that I don't have to do anything more with that. I'm going to take the rest of this day to rest. And then Monday it starts all over again. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. You seem to have enjoyed it. Well, you know, the people that were here at least. Not everyone got to stay. But even those people that didn't get to stay, I still appreciate them coming by at least. First time seeing Unicorn in here. That was nice. So, if you enjoyed this, either during the stream or afterwards, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell icon. That way you get notified of every video that comes out. Because, like, I do other streams too. I do education streams. I do games. You want to see all of it? I'm good for the long run. If you know anybody else who might be interested in this, especially now that we're talking about getting the game started. Like, if you know somebody who's into tabletop games, or they're just into Star Trek and they could be introduced to tabletop games. Or hell, if they just like tabletop games and you want to introduce them to Star Trek, this is like the perfect time to do so. So share this video with anyone you think might be even remotely interested with it. After that, do me a favor. Leave a like on the stream or the video afterwards. Leave a comment down below. Join the Discord. There's like 10 people in the Discord. Those are rookie numbers. We got to get those up. So join the Discord, come talk with us, and I will see you next week, for something. I don't know what we're doing yet. Maybe another module for something. I have other modules that I want to do. So we'll cover that then. And until that time, take care.